I would like to call this special meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order for the purpose of swearing in the new Buncombe County manager. And so I would like to ask Judge Calvin Hill to come forward and Avril Pender for the swearing in. Judge Hill, thank you for being with us.
It's my pleasure. Absolutely. You have anybody you want to? I'll let you come on this side. There you go. So I'm going to have you say every word so that you can do it with my so that you can hear you. But not what I'm saying to you. So we're going to go through every word of this. So I want you to say every word that you ready? That's your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right and repeat after me. I state your name.
Avril Pender,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as county manager.
as county manager.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Judge Hill, thank you so much for being with us. And Ms. Pender, congratulations, and we're so excited to have you on board as the new Buncombe County Manager. And I understand you'd like to say a few words and maybe introduce some of the folks that you have with us this evening.
Good evening, Chairman Newman, Vice Chair Beach Ferreira, Commissioner Belcher, Edwards, Fryer, Presley, and Whiteside. Thank you for the opportunity and for your support. It is an honor to be here and take oath of office as your county manager. Thank you, Judge Hill, for taking the time out of your schedule to administer the oath. Thank you to my friends and family, several of whom made the trip today to be with me. Special thank you to my sister, my nieces, my nephew-in-law, and my husband, Ellis, Brian, and Adrian, and Jada. And my friends, I see Patricia and Ralph here that made the trip with me today. I could have done this without you, and I couldn't be here standing today without your support. So thank you for your unconditional love and support. Thank you to my many partners that have reached out to me and welcomed me to Buncombe County. We will work together and continue making Buncombe County the best place to live, to work, to play, and yes, to retire. 4 weeks ago, I stood before you and accepted the manager's position. I committed then to work to rebuild the public's trust. Today, I take the oath of office as your manager. And again, I recommit to you that we will work to rebuild the public's trust and move Buncombe County forward. Thank you again for your time, and now it's time to get to work.
So we are now going to adjourn this special called meeting. So thank you, and thank you all for being with us this afternoon. We're going to reconvene at 5 o'clock for the regularly scheduled Buncombe County Commission meeting at that time. So if you're staying with us, we look forward to being back in a few minutes for that. And for the rest of you, thank you for being at this special meeting, and have a good evening. We're adjourned.
I'm not one on reference. I see her. She's back here talking to Julie. Rachel and I are. She's still over the ice cream.
Start the meeting. So Max, I think we're ready to begin the introductory video. I'd like to call the March 5th, 2019 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. Thank you all for being with us. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we begin our meeting this evening, I would like to again extend our welcome to Avril Pender, our new Buncombe County Manager, who was officially sworn in at a special meeting at 4:30 this afternoon. Avril Pender has worked in the local government sector for many years in North Carolina. She comes to us from the other side of the great state of North Carolina, but we are glad to have her with us here in the mountains. Buncombe County has a dedicated and talented workforce, and we look forward to Avril Pender's leadership for this organization and community. We also have with us this evening, and we'll be hearing from him in a little while, our newly elected Sheriff, Quentin Miller. We welcome the opportunity to have Sheriff Miller with us to talk about his vision and goals for our community's law enforcement and public safety this year and into the future. So before we begin this meeting, let's have a moment of silence for prayer or reflection and appreciation for all the men and women who work for Buncombe County and the Buncombe County Sheriff's Department, who work hard for the people of this community every day. We thank you all for what you do to serve the people of this county. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And thank you again for being with us. I'd like to announce that if you use the county's parking facility or Asheville Transit to attend this meeting, there are parking validation. There's parking validation available with one of the officers who is here. So if you'd like to have that validation, then please see those folks on your way out. We want to make it easy for folks to attend our county meetings. I'm going to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which would have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters voted on by the board at this meeting. Okay, we come to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and follow the remainder of the agenda as published? And I will also note that the medic agenda item was moved from new business to old business.
I so moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. So we've got a couple of informational presentations, and the first one is from Sheriff Quentin Miller. Sheriff Miller, thank you so much for being with us this evening, and we'll look forward to hearing from you about what's going on in the Sheriff's Department. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. So it's definitely a pleasure to be here. So to the board members, the Correctional Board of Commissioners, the county manager, and the citizens of Buncombe County, good evening. It's a pleasure to be before you this evening. Without further ado, I will present to you the state of Buncombe County Sheriff's Office. I will talk to you about your investment and commitment to the safety of Buncombe County and all of its citizens, and transitioning to the 21st century policing. Why is this implementation of 21st century policing crucial and important? Trust between law enforcement agency and the people they protect and serve is essential in a democracy. It is key to the stability of our community, the integrity of our criminal justice system, and the safe and effective delivery of policing services. I'm asking you today to invest in Buncombe County Sheriff's Office with the understanding that the 21st century policing is a strategic framework that will guide our work and decision-making. Since being sworn in as your Buncombe County Sheriff, I have talked to members of our county and the committed employees of the Sheriff's Office. And I'm convinced we have an incredible opportunity here. to make a difference in the lives of our citizens, including those already incarcerated and the youth headed that way.
Sheriff Miller, one moment. If we could get some technical assistance, I think the clicker is having some issues, just to make sure folks can follow along with the slide presentation.
We need to buy a better clicker. You are not the only one who has had issues with this clicker, so.
Are y'all sure it's called a clicker?
That's the technical name, yes.
Are you sure?
A clicker.
Did you Google that earlier?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's all about where you point it, though.
Okay. As I said before, that the sheriff's office, I am convinced we have an incredible opportunity to make differences in the lives of our citizens, including those incarcerated and those headed that way. The challenges are many, from the mental health to substance abuse to early childhood to unemployment. As a 25-year veteran in law enforcement, I have witnessed the highs and lows of this profession, and unfortunately, I believe we are in a valley right now. In the next few slides, I'm going to describe a portion of my vision to come out of the valley, and I hope to have you, the Buncombe County Commissioners, support as we tackle these systemic issues together. We must bring our community together. And what that means is bringing the community, the law enforcement, and the local government together. Part of that is our residents of Buncombe County. We need them to participate in problem-solving efforts to reduce crime and improve the quality of life. This is through our town hall meetings. The Buncombe County Commissioners create listening opportunities with various areas and groups in the community. Listen and engage in dialogue regarding concerns and issues related to trust. Conduct community surveys on attitudes toward policing and publish the results. The Buncombe County Sheriff's Office, we want to review and update our policies, training, and data. We want to do a collection on our use of force, and engage the community members and police, engage our community members. Increase the transparency of data, policies and procedures. Ensures officers have access to the tools they need to keep them safe. Also new to the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office, I know men and women and youth in our community, and I will be a sheriff that will be inclusive and will serve everyone. My vision will require commitment on the part of the county. I need you to invest in the sheriff's office. The investment is a request for 21 positions, which I will break down into 4 sections. Policing and public safety, detention, oversight and transparency, and community engagement. I'm committed to partnering with communities to engage in neighborhood problem solving. To be effective and efficient, I will need 10 personnel: crime prevention sergeant, 8 patrol deputies, and an evidence room technician. So I've broken those down. The crime prevention sergeant and the patrol deputies will focus on community engagement as means of increased public safety. Buncombe County Sheriff's Office currently has an average of 12 to 14 patrol deputies who are covering 656 square miles per shift. Request will increase the patrol deputies coverage from that of 12 to 14 to 14 to 16 per shift. Deputies require us to be driven by call volumes, prevent us from having an opportunity to engage our community. The levels will have a lasting impact. I'm asking Lieutenant Kaiser to step up now.
First, I'd like to thank the sheriff for inviting me to speak today on behalf of the patrol division within the sheriff's office, and I'd like to thank you folks for allowing me to speak today as well. We talk about those numbers, we talk about 21st century policing, and we have the vision of being a community of leaders. But with 656 square miles, on most nights, I have 12 to 14 officers that are working. And that's a good night, folks. That's a good night in your communities that we want to be more engaged in, that we want to be a part of and be that community of leaders. We look at numbers, we look at statistics over the last few years, and our crime rates, we see that things have dropped. But if you look on a national level as a whole, violent crimes are starting to increase again, and we don't have the numbers to combat that. Some nights we work at minimum staffing levels, and we've been able to do those things that we've done over the last few years, but it's becoming very hard. The attrition rate on our officers it's ridiculous sometimes. We have officers out sick, we have officers injured. If someone gets injured or someone gets sick, it puts us that much further down. We're having a hard time keeping up. To become a community of we need your help, we need your help to make us a better part of you, to be able to see the sheriff's vision out. Some extra folks would really be nice. Thank you.
Next, we'll talk about the evidence room technician. The position of the evidence room technician plays a critical role in how we maintain the integrity and property that we now have. We have over 31,000 pieces of property. And there's a poor handling of this property and evidence, whether by intentional wrongdoing or lack of oversight by understaffing, only serves to erode the public's trust. I don't know if you saw the top story this morning top story this morning on the news. It spoke about what happens in another county about their property. And so I'm concerned about how we now handling our property within Buncombe County. I talked to you about staffing, that we will have 2 people available at all times. So as we move from one part of the property room to another, it should be 2 people in what we call a 2-man rule. So again, that is some of the asks today, is that how do we now address this issue? We often hear, and the officers heard me say this, it's about what we know, when we know, and what do we do. So now we know that we have an issue in our property room, and we're bringing this to everyone's attention. We have to do something about it. Next, I want to talk about the detention center. We're requesting 5 positions for detention: 4 intake specialists or detention officers, 1 detention facility detective. Adding the intake specialist will allow us to change the culture of the detention facility. By implementing an intake specialist on each operational squad, we can adopt a new mindset with regards to service and delivery. At the initial entry of an arrestee to the detention facility, an intake specialist will evaluate through a questionnaire any force used in an arrest, the impaired or intoxicated levels of the arrestee, and the need for any medical attention. All of this occurs before the arrestee enters the detention facility. So the detention facility detective, so we're now in a position, once again, that we're having contraband found in our detention facility. And so we will speak to you about, some of the measures that we're now taking. But also, I want to tell you that, again, it's about what we know, when do we know, what do we do. And so this detention detective will be a way of us now following up when we find contraband in our facility. And when I say follow up, we need to start doing reports on that and then following up for prosecution and charges. And so this is another means of not just charging people, because we don't want them released just on, their time served. We need to have a case. And so that will help us with having a detective to address this. So also I'm going to have Lieutenant Latrell step forward and speak to you about the detention facility.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, Commissioner, for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. Again, my name is Jeffrey Latrell. I've been with the detention facility for going on 15 years. My role is currently the operations lieutenant, overseeing all operations of the facility. I'd like to begin by advocating for these 5 positions in detention by asking the 3 questions Sheriff has already asked, is what you know, when you knew it, or when you knew about it, and what did you do about it. These questions is the basis for our understanding and decision-making throughout the Sheriff's Office since December 3rd. And I'll start with what we know. We know not having an intake specialist puts the detention center at a severe disadvantage when preventing contraband from entering the facility. We know it is better to be proactive than reactive when dealing with the problem. And we know it is better, secondly, it is when you knew it. Having these intake specialists, they will be tasked with asking the screening questions immediately, like the sheriff was talking about. These questions will include drug usage, if they've ingested any drugs, and alcohol. They'll also be asking the arresting officer questions and screening the arresting officer. Is this individual being combative? As they said anything during the course of arrest that would allude that they would be a suicidal or anything that we would need to know to better care for that individual. We're also, detention will soon need an officer on each squad to be assigned to operate our body scanner, which will be getting installed in 6 to 8 weeks. So that is very important. Lastly is what did you do? Our officers in detention do amazing things on a daily basis. They have an extremely hard job and they need our support. The 5th position is for the detention investigator, who will focus, like the sheriff said, investigating officers' assaults, because those have gone up in our facility, and reports involving inmates possessing contraband in our facility. We provide many services and programs for all our inmates if they want to contribute, participate in those programs to help them succeed. If they choose to come in our facility and still conduct criminal activity and assault our officers, we want to be able to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law and hold them accountable and do it the right way. Thanks, Sheriff.
So next I will be moving to the oversight and transparency. There currently, the office currently has one position that provides internal IT support and tests, requires deploys and maintain technology. He handles all our tasers, all our technology for his radios, inside the vehicles and handhelds, body-worn cameras. And currently he does pretty much everything we want him to do when it comes time to IT. And the short of this is he's overworked and I need more help with him. So definitely that. The next thing is a policy and analysis. So I've spoken on several occasions about the policies that exist. And so we have trouble tracking those policies for us, who assigned it, when they signed it, and especially when we make changes. And I've, been able to find that out when I start making changes. So it goes back again to what we know, when we know, what to do. So we have a need to have someone who can help us track, these policies and get our policies up to date, as well as keeping them up to date and keeping people informed of what they are and why. The next one position will be a sergeant in professional standards. That's like the internal affairs part of the office, meaning that these folks will kind of help us, and again, keep us on track and make sure that we're investigating things thoroughly, internally, as well as ensuring that if there comes a situation, that we have a neutral set of eyes sitting on things and looking at it, so that we can, one, do what we need to do for discipline and keeping being transparent. So that becomes very important for us. I now move to what I call very, very important to me, this community engagement. When I start about community engagement, I start thinking about community outreach. And for those of you familiar with the COPS programs, it's pretty much we get people from all over the organization and we go into a community. And at that time, we will strategize and plan with that community to, in fact, develop solutions. I like that idea. The difference is I want more. And more means that we have to stay constantly engaged instead of waiting to come out 3 to 6 months. We'll now be able to now address things as they're happening if we are able to have people, engaged, I'm gonna call it a community engaged person, that will be able to work with our community on a regular basis, opposed to 3 to 6 months at a time. Again, the complete overview, and I'd just like to share this with you. Moving forward is imperative that we take a new approach and adopt a new mindset for our deputies based on innovative approaches of 21st century policing, changing the mindset of that of being warriors to that of being guardians. Again, I've broken down the 21 new positions in 4 categories. So it comes down to the positions that we require an initial investment of $1,269,000, which includes $600,000 in vehicles. And if you're looking at our spreadsheet, you can see that we also have a housing revenue of $315,000, which means the cost will be $954,000. And I will tell you, this is like a one-time expense due to the vehicles. We won't have to go back and buy and purchase those again. So the overall budget is a 4.13 increase to the fiscal year 19 budget. Last but not least, I have to talk to you about our fleet vehicles. And so I'm going to ask Sheriff Powell to step up to give you information on our fleet.
My name is Sherry Powers. I'm the Sheriff's Business Officer, and thank you for giving us the time to go through this tonight. When Sheriff Miller took office, we began to review every aspect of the Sheriff's office. One area that where there was obvious need was the Sheriff's fleet. We have approximately 267 vehicles. Of those vehicles, we classify them in 3 ways. Priority 1 vehicles are marked and unmarked vehicles, primarily used in enforcement roles, which include responding to calls for service and specialized enforcement. Those examples of those are patrol and our civil process vehicles, who also fill in for patrol. These vehicles are called upon to possibly run code to get somewhere quickly if there is a need in the county. Priority 2 vehicles are secondary response vehicles used in primarily in non-enforcement roles, but are also subject to emergency response if the situation requires. Examples of those are our criminal investigations, our detective vehicles, and other support staff. Priority 3 vehicles are primarily special use. They're things like our animal control vehicles, inmate transport vehicles that require special upfitting for the use they're designed for. In evaluating the Sheriff's fleet, we reviewed available data and conducted surveys of law enforcement agencies to determine best practice in our industry. We spoke to the North Carolina Sheriff's Association. We looked at a published survey by the FBI where they looked at law enforcement agencies all over the country. And we spoke to the 10 largest counties in North Carolina that closely compared to our size and scope of work. It was determined that best practice calls for the replacement of priority 1 enforcement vehicles between 80 and 100,000 miles. We have a slide that shows you of our 267 vehicles, priority 1 vehicles, 144 of those are priority 1 vehicles. Of those, 48 of our priority 1 vehicles currently have over 120,000 miles, and 14 of those have over 150,000 miles. This deviates from best practice and was an obvious area of need for the sheriff in the way of safety and providing the services that the county expects of the sheriff's office. To help us achieve a healthy fleet and follow best practice, the sheriff's requesting the county replace 40 enforcement vehicles annually, and this will require an approximate investment of $1.6 million. As you can see from the slide, historically, we have been underfunded in that area according to our research for best practice. Over the years, we've had between 12 and 26 vehicles replaced on an annual basis, and that sort of compounded the effect on our fleet today. Thank you.
Questions?
All right, thank you to all of you. So,
We talked a little bit about, I want to thank you for coming out and listening with what's up there. I think it was a good session. You mentioned the patrols, and it may be too early. Do you have any idea where those 8 patrol officers, do you have any direction on kind of what areas those would probably go to?
Well, what we would do is put 2 in each shift, on each part, so 1, 2, and 3, that we have them all over the county.
Okay.
So the total of 8 would be more or less 2 on each shift.
Sheriff Miller, thank you and to the staff of the Sheriff's Office, thank you all for being here in your presentation. Just a quick follow-up question about the intake specialist position. Is that a position that currently exists, or is intake being handled differently under current policies?
It'll be new positions.
A new position. And is that something where you'd envision any specialized training for those folks, or would it be any detention officer could, or standard training would prepare a detention officer for that role?
It'd probably be new training, because we have a new machine that's coming, that they would be able to utilize that machine to keep us safe.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you guys for your time. Thank you guys. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, you're making these recommendations based on the needs you're seeing right now. Do you anticipate that there will be other additional funding requests that might be identified by the Sheriff's Department between now and when we approve our budget in June? Or do you think like you've had a sufficient amount of time that this is it, this is what it looks like, or is it this? But there may be other things identified between now and when we vote on the budget in June.
I think that there may be other things, and the reason I will tell you that is part of this community of we is how we go out to our community and now ask our community about their needs, and there may be some different, and so we want to address the community. So once we start again with the community outreach, we'll be able to answer some of those questions, as well as having, and I'm not saying, I would tell you that we would like for all the commissioners to visit, our detention facility, and of course the county manager. And again, I'm taking the approach that we need help. We have to do this together, so if there's something out there that we may overlook or that you see our need, we would like to have you have input also. So the answer to your question is yes. I think there may be other things out there that we may need some help.
So I think the reason I mentioned the patrols, when I look at, and I don't know, you are the experts on what you need, but when I hear from the public, when I'm out in the community, a lot of the things that you're requesting, flies over the top of their head. They're not really interested in it. They want more presence, and which, is more patrol, more people in their area. And so that's predominantly what I hear in the community. And so since I had the opportunity to tell you, I figured I'd reinforce that. But that's mainly what I hear. I think some of the things you presented are, part of your model, that you're wanting to try to, go towards those things. But the patrol is what I hear out in the community, just the presence and having the comfort of knowing that they're there. And I want to say this, the Buncombe County Sheriff's Department, y'all done an amazing job. My district is taken care of. They love you. No matter whether you're at, whether you're in your car or whether you're speaking to them at Miami, wherever it is, they appreciate what you do. And in this day of where people are concerned about their homes and things, so you just primarily here, I just like to see more. And I know there's only a certain amount that we can, that we can invest or that we can spend. You've got to be practical and you've got to balance all of that. But that's what I hear out there, Sheriff.
So, I really appreciate the presentation and information. I do think it'll be important for us to, hear if there's other important budgetary needs, over the next couple of months. Of course, we want to hear those together because I think it's important that we look at all this together. There's always more needs than enough funds to do everything you would like to do. And so I think we want to look at that together and make sure we're trying to get the resources to have the most beneficial impact that we can. Just as one example, this a couple of meetings ago, the grant came up for the additional SROs, which is a great program. We're doing it. And part of the concerns I had around that was that we were making a decision where it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. We got an initial grant, but to sustain it will cost the county through the sheriff's department hundreds of thousands of dollars in perpetuity, right? So. And there might be more such requests in that arena. So I just think this is a lot of information, but if there's other parts of this too, to be able to kind of look at all that together and figure out, which parts can we take on this year. We're not going to probably be able to get to all this, in one bite at the apple, but which parts can we take a step right now, and then, over time, hopefully we can really, meet all the important priorities. Any other questions or comments from any commissioners on this topic?
Yeah, the comment I would have is, thank you, Sheriff Miller. It's a good presentation. But one of the concerns I would have is, I agree with Brownie in that let's see by budget time everything that you need. We need to know that. But also, too, we're going to need you to prioritize what you need first, what now, because it's a good chance that we might not be able to do this all in 1 year, depending on what we have on the budget. But we need to get some idea, and we need to start. I'll be the first to say that. And I would too like to say, when you talk about the vehicles, which surprised me, because one thing I can say from traveling in the county when I'm out there, this is something in the last 4 or 5 years that I see now, that there was a time I would never see a sheriff's car if I was going out to Leicester or depending where I see. But now I see as many sheriff's cars as I do police cars. I live in the city and I might see more sheriff's cars, really, which is good. Keep up the good work. But we want to make sure that you have a good fleet and that everybody is safe. But no, I would like to say that that's one of the, we need to be able to prioritize so that we'll know what you really need now, what we got to do. Because at budget time, from what little I've seen so far, we've got a lot coming at us. But we definitely want to take care of what we need.
I would just like to thank all the commissioners, and also to say that I do truly intend to work with the commissioners, and I'm hoping that you guys would have the same commitment, because I think it's time for us to do something in Buncombe County, not only just taking care of our community as far as our youth. We have other issues to address, and I would agree of how do we keep our community safe. And we also have the opiates crisis, and we also have this young early childhood education piece. So I do understand that there are needs, and I just want to make sure that we do that together.
One last comment, which is just the other big part of this is the capacity of the detention facility, right? And can we, as a community, live with what we've got in terms of existing capacity, or is there going to be a need for expansion in the near future or at some point? So I think that's an important part of the conversation too, because if there is a need to expand, that's a very expensive capital item, and it needs to be considered, alongside these operating issues as well. Of course, I think it's the last thing any of us would want to spend more dollars on. We want to spend it on investing in people and schools and things like that. But we have to look at that. So it's being discussed, but I think it's got to be looked at real carefully through this budget process as well, and hopefully we can reach a good resolution on what our outlook is on that question too.
And I got one more. Sorry.
If I could, just a quick add-on to that and a request for the next time we get to sit down with you, Sheriff, is I would really like to hear you and your team's specific analysis around the jail population issue and kind of the full menu of strategies we could be exploring, not just around potentially reducing jail population, but also kind of longer-term planning. It's a conversation we had with Sheriff Duncan regularly, and I just appreciate hearing your team's perspective. So not just sort of the budgetary side of the house, but also kind of specific strategies we could look at in the short term.
Definitely look forward to that. And as I stated before, we welcome anyone that wants to come and take a tour. We will make that happen. Absolutely.
The other thing I was going to mention was, with the addition of our new, county manager from New Hanover, coming from New Hanover County, and bringing your experience here when it comes to looking at whether it's a jail or whether it's the funding within the sheriff's department and other things. I think we're going to we have a great opportunity to rely on your experience and some of the information you'll bring as you craft some of this and bring it to us. As we look at all this, so I'm excited about that too. So
We are too.
All right. Sheriff, great to see you. Thanks to all the officers and personnel who are here with us tonight. Thanks for everything you do. We appreciate it. And look forward to talking further.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Next up. Presentation about the community health improvement process and community health assessment. And Jen Shepard, our public health director, is going to lead us on this item.
So, good evening, and thank you for having me this evening. And I would like to just point out in the audience, our team of John and Chip staff and some of our advisory council supporters are in the audience, so I recognize them. So I'm Jan Shepard, and I'm your public health director. And under direction and delegation from Stony Blevins, who's our Health and Human Services Director, I administer, the public health programs in the community. So the community health assessment is a core and essential, public health function in our community. It's largely in the background and well supported by many, many community partners that surround us in this work. So I'm really pleased to be here tonight to give you an update. So on the screen you see the summary of what I'd like to talk to you about tonight, and that's the summary of the assessment and the improvement process, the overview of the data and the prioritization process, how we leverage our partners, the review of the standout health conditions, and what's next in our community health process. So you have some handouts, and basically you have 3 handouts that are duplications of some of the slides, and that's because some of the slides have a lot of words on them, so I thought it would help provide some clarity for you. So the purpose of the community health assessment is to identify what factors affect the health of the community, what challenges we have, and what resources are available to us to address these factors. This slide you see shows the timeline, kind of demonstrates how the cycle works. It shows where we are in the process right now, which is in phase 1. And it allows you to see what the timeline going forward is. So this community health assessment and improvement process is a required function of public health across the state, and it is required by the Division of Public Health at the state and also the accreditation board that accredits local health departments. So we do this process every 3 years. We start with a community health assessment. It's a product that does exactly what it says. It assesses the health of the community. We talk about what are the strengths in our community, what health concerns do the community members have, what do we need in our community to address these concerns, and what resources are available to us. Ultimately, from this process, we will develop, implement, and evaluate our strategies to address our identified health concerns. We have a unique partner in our western region called Western North Carolina Healthy Impact. This is a regional effort that's supported by financial and in-kind contributions from hospitals, public health departments, partners, and this is housed and coordinated by WNC Health Network Incorporated. This is also another handout that you have, because there's a lot of information on this slide. But what you're seeing on this slide is really the core partnerships that support this work across our community. So we have Health and Human Services, Mission Health System, MAHEC, as I said before, Healthy Impact, and we also have Community Engagement Team, which is a team that sits under our county leadership, and that helps connect us with the community. So the CHIP Advisory Council is essentially our health coalition, which is a piece of the assessment and improvement process that's required. That brings together all your partners in the community to help you do all of those things that we talk about, identifying the issues, looking for resources, etc. Within our system, we also then, as I mentioned, our CHIP staff. So we have a position under Health and Human Services that coordinates the child and CHIP process. And then through MAHEC, we have our health improvement specialist staff, and they help support this work. We also provide technical assistance to our community partners and our agencies that help lead the implementation of our strategies. So you hear a lot about social determinants of health. And in our CHIP process, we really want to talk about and implement and develop and implement strategies on the components of population, of social determinants of health. So we know that about 20% of our individuals' health status is around their interactions with their medical providers. The rest of that health status is truly dependent on the things that they're in their environment, such as housing, transportation, and factors that are around the community that affect health status. So we take great lengths to address social determinants of health. If you remember, in 2015, we had 4 strategies that we were considering. Infant mortality, obesity and chronic disease prevention, intimate partner violence, and substance use prevention. So briefly, a few examples of some of the work that came out of that 3-year cycle was that there was a clinical shift at MAHEC focusing on equity around infant mortality. The YMCA and ABIPA partnered to deliver a minorities diabetes prevention program under obesity and chronic disease prevention. The Family Justice Center was ultimately a great resource for the issue around intimate partner violence, and expanding harm reduction resources and youth engagement around our substance abuse prevention. In 2018, there were 5 issues that rose to the top of our focus: birth outcomes and infant mortality, asthma and COPD, childhood obesity, substance abuse and chronic pain, and mental health. So all of these issues are important, but we accepted a challenge from our State Division of Public Health to select 2 priorities that we really wanted to focus on. So we chose birth outcomes and infant mortality and mental health. I would like to say that birth outcomes and infant mortality is really a representation of your overall community. because the barriers that exist for healthy pregnant women having healthy children at birth really are reflective of the barriers that affect the health of the community. We're also seeing that mental health, such as adverse childhood experiences, is also a similar proxy around a whole entire community's health status. Now, it'll be necessary for us to narrow mental health down. It's a huge bucket of potential issues, so we're going to focus on some manageable set of objectives in there. I want to emphasize that while public health is not responsible for, nor do we take credit for, much of the work that is accomplished in the community around improved health. But it is important to note that our role as conveners and leaders of this cycle and processes contained within is essential. So birth outcomes and infant mortality, some of the strategies that are working in our favor right now is Mothering Nashville, NFP and other home visiting services, Mother Love, which connects birth, teens, pregnant teens and educational goals, and then our effort to become a breastfeeding friendly community. Around mental health, things that we're going to be considering are building resilient communities, peer-to-peer programs, access to behavioral health services, harm reduction, and equity in CLAS services. So we want to be rethinking how we do health and how we define health, how we deliver health, and how we pay for health. A healthy Buncombe is possible. We're well on our way, and we look to you for support in achieving this vision. So thank you again for allowing me to speak to you tonight. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer.
All right, thank you so much. Questions?
I just got a comment. I looked through everything and I appreciate the presentation. Tremendous amount of, a lot of strategy in here, a lot of that content. I would love to see a few more goals. What do you hope to, things that are measurable?
Yes, so our process, as we are establishing our work groups around our focused health conditions, that those will be embedded in our action plan. So we will be doing measurable goals and objectives, and that work will be happening through the spring and the summer, and we'll be happy to continuously communicate with you all around those objectives and goals that we're hoping to achieve. Absolutely.
All right, Jan, thank you so much for the presentation. We really appreciate it
Thank you.
and all you do. Okay. We do not have any public hearings reported. So we come to old business, and the first item is a resolution authorizing execution of a memorandum of understanding between the County of Buncombe and the Board of Trustees of Asheville Buncombe Technical Community College. Dr. Frew will tee us off on this.
I will do my best. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we're bringing this back today only to bring to the board's attention the city matter for a vote today. The board voted in this matter a couple weeks ago. It's presented exactly as presented 2 weeks ago with the addition of items related to the suggestion that this board and the trustees of the college work together to appoint an advisory committee for future capital projects. The idea was that it would be modeled after the Buncombe School Capital Fund Commission, and I included language in the resolution to give some leeway on that in the event that the college trustees might say that, well, we think maybe 7 members would work better, or that rather than a community member, X, Y, or Z might work better. And I think that was consistent with the chairman's motion a couple of weeks ago that would be open to discussion, but just want to have some advisory panel appointed partly by this board and partly by the Board of Trustees. The only additional language in the memorandum is consistent with that with the new section 5, which says that this board and the Board of Trustees will work together to appoint an advisory board for future capital projects consistent with that model of the Buncombe School Capital Fund, 2 appointed by this board, 2 by the other board, and 1 community member. But again, this allows for some leeway on the part of the trustees. It would not require, if it's consistent with this resolution, to come back to this board. I understand that the trustees are due to meet tomorrow afternoon. And I've discussed it with the board attorney, and he has copies of this material.
So, question there, are you asking us to, this does look to be consistent with what was discussed at the last meeting.
I just
So
wanted to
that's
make sure
good.
that this board saw that the changes were made and that this is what we presented and have presented to the trustees for a vote, consistent with the vote of this board and the recommendation for the slight change prior.
But from the county's perspective, we've already voted on this, so we don't need another vote tonight. You're just showing us the language that was crafted to just see if there were any comments or feedback on it. Or
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, are there any comments?
So I don't have any comments on this, other than this goes back to the board for them to approve it, right?
Yes, sir. The college trustees are meeting tomorrow afternoon to consider this resolution, or rather this memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
Because they had a meeting prior and the language regarding the joint advisory committee was not included, so they determined that they should meet again to make sure they're on board with that.
So if it does please the board, I would like to make, and I may need some help with this. Okay, I would like to make a separate from this, either direction or motion. I have a concern, I think other folks may share this concern of, and I'm gonna put an approximate dollar amount on it, and I'll leave it to staff to make sure that that's accurate. About $452,000 that was spent for salaries. If it pleases the board, I would like to direct that be returned to operations for AB Tech and the out of our general fund over 4 years. That be, and that's either a direct direction, if it pleases the board, or motion. So between you and the county manager, can y'all tell me how to make sure I present that properly?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Belcher. I believe the appropriate mechanism, since you're generally speaking of a budget item, would be to direct the county manager to work with that and bring it back to the board in May and June during the budget cycle.
And I would certainly like, to see if the board has to make that direction. That's not my recommendation. It's a recommendation based on some input that I have received and that I support. So I think it would be in good faith with our partnership with AD Tech to do that. So.
Well, I think that would be the appropriate thing to do, just to ask the county manager, and I don't think you need to vote on it at this point, you probably can, it's not been added to the agenda, but just ask that this idea be floated and brought back to the board at the appropriate time.
And I wanted to be specific in the ask, though, because it was the salaries only, and I think it was approximately $452,000.
Yes, sir.
And I would welcome any other comments from the board.
So I'm supportive of the idea. The other part that I would also add would be, spending the funds to pay for that staff time. Regardless of what you might want to say about the actions of the former county manager, she and the other staff people probably did spend some time on it. And so it's not an entirely illegitimate thing, but the amounts of money that were spent are just completely exaggerated, right? But I wouldn't want to argue over the nickels and dimes of it. So just reimbursing it in its entirety is fine. This would be fine with me. But the other part that I would also add that from my perspective, when we look at this issue, we look at what the referendum, the funding levels that were talked about in the referendum, a little over $129 million was going to be invested in capital and AV Tech. The other thing that I think should be considered is that Green interfered with, changed some of the building plans. And so some of the projects that were funded were things that AV Tech really did not want. So if we really want to say that AV Tech is going to be assured that they get approximately $130 million of an investment in projects that really are their priorities, then I think we need to say that not only over this next planning horizon that they'll get to the $139 million level, I think there should probably be another $10 to $12 million of additional investments, recognizing that there was about that much money spent on projects that they really did not request. And so that's the other part I would also add to. If we're going to try to respect what was committed in the referendum, I think that's an important part as well.
So what I would say is that with the addition of the commission, that would be one of the things that the commission would look at and take up separately from what I'm suggesting. Because what I'm suggesting is a budget item. I would suggest that conversation be one of the conversations in the...
Well, the reason, I mean, they could certainly work on kind of fleshing it out, but part of the reason I'm bringing it up now is that this resolution, includes a very specific amount of money that's guaranteed, but it doesn't add up to, to if we wanted to say, we want to guarantee you get $140 million of projects that are really your priorities, then the current funding schedule doesn't add up to that.
Well, it does. Last week, 83 million, I put a PowerPoint up. It's over $137 million. The county wanted to give away 6.5 million. It's been reduced down to 5 million. So the county right now is giving $1.5 million back per year for 8 years. That comes up to $12.5 million. At least we're trying to put something back into Kitty. And that's what you're talking about. The $400 and some thousand and all the numbers that was thrown out there in that process, that's where Wanda went and borrowed money to do the refinance, the fire training center, in 3 different items. It come up to 13.8 some million. But I proved the other week that anything that we do between now and 2028, and if you look at the sheet, it don't say all new buildings. The 83 million showed rhododendron, showed elm, showed all these buildings to be repaired. So we can't go with the saying of all new buildings. The process that we have going now is going to work. There's areas that it can work in that's better than, we've seen. I like the idea of 7 people because we've had 3 and 3, 3 from school, 3 from here, plus our staff, or you haven't had opportunity to be 9. It's time to put this to bed. It's time for the school and us, we're locking down basically a total of over $137 million. As it goes past that, and what I forgot to say in my PowerPoint was, this is not going to sunset. It can't. Because the bills don't come due until 2034 and 2035. If we tried to sunset it, that would put it back on the county. So then we'd have to go up on property tax. It's real simple. I thought this was done. We have a vote tomorrow. Whatever the vote comes out, it just comes out. I am 100% for that school. I'm 100% for what needs to be done to that school. And it's, we can either let the buildings fall down and build new ones, or we can fix the ones that's there now to bring them back up to a standard that's a whole lot better than they are today. And that's where I'm at. Thank you.
But because this is a sort of continues to be an active deliberation and dialogue between the Board of Commissioners and the Board of Trustees at AV Tech, and the broader community. I just feel like we have to kind of pause once again, and as we discussed last time, see that there actually is an opportunity, I think, to get an even better version of this plan. And I think the magnitude of this issue and the importance of this relationship, the opportunity to do right in this relationship, get us back in the right relationship, we're sort of a broken one right now, just to me, ask us to take a little bit more time with this proposal to restore, I would agree with Chairman Newman's proposal to not just restore or achieve the level of funds that was promised during the campaign, but to get to a level that actually addresses the ways funds were spent that didn't serve the campus's needs and didn't serve the community needs. So I recognize that that might not be where this lands, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that I think this proposal could be strengthened, and Commissioner Belcher, I would support specifically restoring the $452,000, but I want to go further than that and get it all done at once and take, I think, a little bit more time to do that and to kind of to make sure we don't just put it to bed, but that we do it right.
So I'll say it was pretty, well, this is not the right word, but I knew it was risky for me to do what I did, because I expected that there would be some passionate dialogue on what we had voted on before. We have to realize this goes to their board, and it'll come back to us, and we're going to have the commission, and we can look at that. You know, what's before us has been voted on, so we have to deal with that. And my suggestion was to to direct staff to do that. For a couple of people like it, so we've got to get to a point where I think we've got enough to. Okay, people on my left, I think we've got enough to direct her to do that.
I think this is a great step forward in starting to rebuild the relationship with AV Tech and to restore trust between the two entities. The time that I've been up here, we've talked about making Buncombe County whole from previous transgressions. I view this situation as making AV Tech whole from previous transgressions. A building was torn down, rhododendron, with a promise of a new building. That has not yet been discussed as part of that. The campus lost over 60,000 square feet of classroom space at the direction of the county. And I think that we're heading in the right direction to rectifying that. This is on us as a Board of Commissioners to correct. We can continue to wag our finger. We can continue to lay blame on previous leadership. It is on us to rectify the situation and to take it slow. I wholeheartedly agree. Let's take the time to correct it and to get to the best possible version of a plan that we can, so that we are all at the end of the day happy with it.
This has been voted on, and maybe I'll vote tomorrow. After that vote tomorrow, it's done.
You know, one thing I think we need to be aware of, and I agree with you, Commissioner Edwards, but at some point in time, the buck stops. And I think it's stopping with us, and we've got to correct it. Now, you know, it's a lot of issues that are going to come up that we've got to deal with. And one thing is, when we talk about $30-some million, folks, at the rate the tax is going up, it's going to be more than that when we reach that point. We'll have more, because this is already higher than what we thought it was. But I think when I look at the agreement, and that's why I voted for it, I think it's a good solution to the problem, and we can correct it going forward. That's what we need to be concerned with. And, you know, if we're going to, you know, do what we need to do as commissioners, let's solve this problem. And I think we're doing that. But just to go and look, we can't go back, because this is enough blame to go around to everybody. Commissioners, the Buncombe Tech Board, you name it. You know, when, you know, I've been on 2 university boards, and we would have never let them build a $15 million parking deck that we didn't need, or that's in the wrong place where it could be a good facility there, education building. But let's get this thing done. and do it right. And I think what we're doing is the right way to do it and to solve the problem for the county, the college, and for all of us. But as commissioners, what we've done in the past, we've tried to make everybody happy. And we let one person do that. And this is where we are. But we've got to take the leadership to do this and to solve this problem. And I think we're on the right track.
So does the new county manager have the direction on the 452?
Well, I mean, part of the reason, and not trying to just relive it, part of the reason I think some of us wanted to take more time the last meeting was to talk about issues like the $400,000
Yeah.
and the other buildings. But the motion to take more time was, didn't win. So and I think the issue that's on the agenda tonight is really to just affirm this, clarifying language, regardless of where we all fell on that vote. I think we all agree this is pretty good language. And it doesn't require a vote.
No, and this is not a bad discussion that we're having at all. And the commission is going to have an opportunity to be able to move a lot of this forward. And, we're stepping in a direction and hopefully I think it's in the right direction and it's going to be flexible. There's no doubt about that. I think that needs to be taken care of, and so if y'all could, figure out the number and then bring it back to us for a vote, that would be awesome, or in the budget, however it's supposed to be done.
My recommendation would be to have it as part of the budget ordinance when we bring July 1. So it would not be another standalone conversation, but when we come back to you with our full budget plan for the 1920 year, that allocation, the additional 400 or whatever that number turns out to be able to investigate, we would add that to whatever allocation we would normally give to EVTech. So you would see that then, and then you can vote on it at that time. So it would be a separate conversation as part of the budget ordinance.
Be fine with that?
I would be fine with that. I would also be fine with if there's the will in the board to do something on these items sooner than that. I'm also open to that, and I would like to do that. I also want to just be respectful of kind of our commission protocols. It's always nice to be on the winning side of the vote, but you're not always. And I think we, as a person who's wasn't on the majority on that, I don't think you should always just keep bringing things back up. We voted, and I want to respect the vote that we had at the last meeting. So unless there is a change from one of the folks who voted for this plan, I think that this is the plan until we come up with something different. Yes, right? Yes. Are there any other comments on this item before we move on to the next one? Okay. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Greer. All right. The next item on the agenda is consideration of application for grant of franchise to operate ambulances in the county medic. And again, Michael Frew will lead us out.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. A couple weeks ago, this board voted to direct staff to work with MEDIC, which is Medical Emergency Ambulance Transport, Inc., through its principal, Clint Talley, for an agreement for a franchise. After that meeting, I quickly concluded that the best course of action was to comply with our existing emergency services ordinance, which allows for an applicant to come into the county, make application and present to staff, and staff would present to the board, and the board would make specific findings. So not quite 2 weeks ago, I did speak with Mr. Talley. He brought in some material. He was able to meet with legal staff. And let me just go briefly through what's required as part of the application. This doesn't happen very often, so we don't have a form for an application. But there are specific elements that are required to be produced. The name and address of the applicant, and I'll summarize through here. Any trade or fictitious names. It is medically emergency ambulance transport, and they do have a valid filing with the Register of Deeds to operate or do business as MEDIC, M-E-D-I-C. A resume of the training experience of the applicant in transportation care for patients. Material responsive for that is included with the application. a description of each ambulance owned or operated by the applicant. There is a listing of 7 vehicles, I believe, make and model of the ambulances and age. Verified with the tax assessor's office that those are listed for taxation with the Buncombe County assessor. The location and description of the places which is intended to operate, it does have its central locations, and please feel free to correct me if I miss any, but I know that home base is at 5 West Haven in Skyland area. Number 6, audited financial statement of the applicant as the same pertains to its operations in the county. Received a copy of that. A description of the applicant's capability to provide 24-hour coverage. The original application wasn't clear on that. Mr. Freeman asked that Mr. Talley supplement that. He did. It showed some scheduling and hours and how that would operate, and that appears to be responsive. Criminal record check of the directors and managers of the applicant, that is included. Statement of a non-discrimination policy, that is included. And any information otherwise deemed reasonably necessary. And a fee. The board has never set a fee, so there's no fee for this application. At this time, as of this time, there's been one thing we do need pursuant to the application and ordinance is an investigation of the equipment and materials and garage spaces of the applicant. I've spoken with Mr. Jerry Vihon, our EMS director, and he's working with OEMS, Office of Emergency Medical Services out of Raleigh, and they have arranged to do that, and I think that's going to be tomorrow. I'm not positive, but I think they're working to get that accomplished tomorrow. Included in your agenda packet, again, is the information that legal department has reviewed, and the elements contained in the application packet are responsive to the ordinance, and it would be our recommendation that the board follow the requirements of the ordinance, and that a franchise may be granted by this board if the board finds that the public will be served by granting the applicant a franchise. The application is accurate and complete. The applicant has provided adequate evidence of its ability to provide safe, adequate, and responsible service. And the applicant holds all necessary licenses and permits from OEMS or will fully qualify to obtain same in the near future. Part of the application process also included the financial statements of the applicant. Shared those with our finance director, Don Warren. He points out that the financial ratios submitted are based on a year-end 2016 financial statements. That's what we have. And overall, the financial, I'm going to summarize here, overall, the financial ratios of the organization are not a cause for significant concern. The debt ratio is 0.64. The closer the number is to 1, the more debt burden the organization has, and the ratio is greater than 1 would be a signal of significant problem. But again, he said that overall, financial ratios are not a cause of significant concern. And that's what I have for you at this time. I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can. I know Mr. Talley is here, and Brandon Freeman is here to review it. He would be available also if needed.
This is for a year, right?
The direction of this board would be to grant a franchise, and at this point it would be, if it's consistent, if the board finds that it's consistent with the requirements of the ordinance, to grant it for 1 year. Yes, sir. I have a draft of an agreement I hope to share with Mr. Tyler, if this board's wish. I can do that as early as tomorrow. Just need to make sure that we have some information in there regarding any fees, and that should be consistent with county EMS fees, Medicare and Medicaid billings, which are currently about $850 per ride, I understand. You put information requiring that the county be able to make inspections of the facilities and property as required or as necessary, and just need to double check on the insurance requirements. And I believe he's provided that information. I need to verify that, and that it does name the county as an additional insured.
So there's an application which is on the informational website, but the actual franchise agreement, you've got a draft of it, but it hasn't been finalized yet or shared with Mr. Collier or...
Yeah, yes, basically that is correct, but there's sort of two ways to look at that. Essentially, the board, if it makes those 4 findings, would grant the franchise. With that franchise, we would do an agreement to make sure we're gonna operate. I mean, the ordinance doesn't fill every hole that would be required in day-to-day operations, cooperation between the county and the franchisee. So that's what the agreement would be intended to do, day-to-day operations, insurance, open books, investigations, et cetera.
So that franchise agreement need to be voted on by the county commissioners?
Unless this board directs just that with the direction of county legal staff and the manager, that we would negotiate it. Otherwise, it would have to come back to the board, if that's what we wish.
Questions?
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused. I want to make sure that I'm not confused. It's my understanding that this was complete except for the successful inspections of OEMS, the applicant's premises and equipment. Is that accurate?
My interpretation is that that's correct as far as the ordinance requirements are involved. There's just those other couple of loose ends that I would need to work with Mr. Tolley to clarify and get finalized. I mean, in addition to an agreement that would need to be negotiated and approved, and I don't anticipate much problem with that. We also need to make sure that we schedule arrangements with the county IT department to get the required radio equipment put in there to help by installing operating GPS location.
So those are logistics, those don't necessarily have to be in the contract. I mean, in the franchise agreement.
I would just include them in the agreement just to make sure everyone knows that that's what we're doing, just to document that. It's not documented in the ordinance once again.
So if I'm wanting to make a motion to support this, how do I do that? What do I need to include? Because my understanding is the franchise agreement was complete, with the exception of the OEMS inspections.
And I handed up a piece of paper to the board. You should have it. And it's in the back.
I have a quick question. Who will monitor this for the course of the year? And will there be specified check-ins throughout the year?
There is not a specific indication in the ordinance as to how to do that, but I'd have to work out logistics with Jerry B. on staff. The ordinance simply states that the county may inspect a franchisee's records, premises, and equipment at any time in order to ensure compliance with this article and any franchise granted under this article.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. That's part of why, but there's a franchise application, but there is not a franchise agreement that exists yet that any of us have seen. And it sounds like it's in some ways it's pretty, and I don't mean this in a negative way, Michael, but just kind of, pretty bare bones in a way. I mean, pretty simple. It doesn't sound like what you're contemplating has a lot of, frankly, a lot of regulations in terms of how this would be run. They would have a fairly free hand in terms of how they would run it. I mean, they don't report to the county. They're not like the fire districts. They don't have an elected board that they report to. It's a for-profit entity, and they would, there wouldn't be a lot of regulations around how they operate under that franchise. At the county would be, it sounds like a very simple document you're talking about, not a lot of regulations on how it would be.
It's modeled on the agreement we have with all of the 16 volunteer fire departments. It's a shorter version of the same. And I think Commissioner Belcher sort of nailed it. I mean, we were talking about the administrative loose ends to get this accomplished.
So would section 22-43 granting this 1, 2, 3, and 4 plus the OEMS, would the inspection being able to pass that, would that allow us to
I
vote
didn't
on
keep
this?
myself a copy, but there are 3 things written on the back.
You can certainly approach the grant bids if you want to.
There's the 4 highlighted criteria, and then there's 3 things you want to do.
While you're looking at that, I've got one concern though here. And this is, we want with drag, this has been like out a long time, ever since I've been on the, over 2 years now, we've been talking about this. But I have one concern though here. Could we set a bad precedent if we start giving away our right to approve a franchise agreement? I mean, if we're gonna do a franchise agreement, not only to protect the county and the Tollers, I wanna see, shouldn't we approve that and come before the commissions?
I think so.
Because what happens if we start just giving, and not knocking you, Michael, but if we just start giving him our authority to do the franchise agreements, and that's what we're saying.
Well, I mean, I don't know how to write a franchise agreement, so what I was expecting to do this evening was to approve a franchise agreement upon certain inspections. So, I'm a little frustrated that I don't have a franchise agreement.
I'm just,
I think the first step would be granting the franchise conditional upon the successful inspection.
That's where I was.
Okay, yeah.
That's it.
Only if there's a successful inspection would it advance to the agreement stage.
Okay,
That's perfectly reasonable.
okay, all right, hang on now.
Sorry, was that?
That's a perfectly reasonable way to do it.
Is that a motion?
That was not a motion, I was just trying to.
That sounds like my motion. I think that's where I was trying to get to. So I'm gonna make that motion, what you just said.
All right, there's a motion to approve the franchise application, and it's contingent upon the inspection.
Yes.
It's with the understanding that there will also be development of a franchise agreement that'll be reviewed by the board.
And just to be sure, the motion, if Commissioner Belcher's motion would need to be that I move to approve a franchise for Medic, and as the board does find that the public will be served by granting the applicant a franchise, the application is accurate and complete, the applicant has provided adequate evidence of its ability to provide safe, adequate, and responsible service, and the applicant holds all necessary licenses and permits from OEMS, contingent upon passing an inspection by the Office of OEMS.
So I'll make that motion, then from that, it would move to the agreement to come back to the board. That would be the motion, is that right?
Yep.
I want to get it right, so.
I think it is, as long as you're accepting everything that Mr. Frew just spelled out as part of the motion, yes. All right, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion, we will take public comment on this. Any other questions from the board? Yeah, we will. I have one question. So, when we talked about this before, there was discussion about a nonprofit organization, but this franchise agreement would actually be with a for-profit company, not a nonprofit company. Is that correct?
That's the way I'm reviewing the application. I mean, the first page comes from Medic, and that's the doing business as assumed name, certificate of assumed name on file for medical emergency ambulance transport. Secretary of State records show that medical emergency ambulance transport is a North Carolina for-profit corporation.
That's who the franchise agreement is with a for-profit company, not with a nonprofit entity. Correct. I just want to make sure we're really clear, who is getting this agreement, right?
Yeah, the agreement with the franchise would be with the applicant that owns the assets to provide the service, and the applicant and the ambulance services, or the ambulances themselves are owned by.
And that's Medical Emergency Ambulance Transport Incorporated.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go ahead and take public comment on this. Thank you, Mr. Ford. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on the motion? We'll start with you, then we'll do Mr. Yeldon, and then I'll go to that. Go ahead. And please share your name and where you live.
I'm Don Copenhaver. I recently retired, but had 25 years with 3
Buncombe County employers, manufacturers, and a huge warehouse. We had experience as an HR and safety director, and the Buncombe County EMS and fire departments do an excellent job of responding in a timely manner. I've actually ridden in the Swananoa EMS vehicle to the Beacon door that we need to go into and so forth. So I want to thank that group, and they do an excellent job. I also want to thank the council, commission for adding 4 paramedics. We appreciate that. My concern, and I don't know medic in the group per se, is their $850 calls that they make will take away from the county calls and the county funding for that service that the county is currently providing. And again, I don't know medics service or not, but that's a concern I have, that what door are we opening and how much is that door going to open? I can't answer that, but that's a concern. You did answer one question just now on the 1 year of the contract. It says 5 on the website. I attended a meeting on February 6th with 3 of the commissioners, and we discussed this at length, had open discussion concerning how the franchise would operate, and so that was one of the issues. Also, that we got a commitment to have in there was where the vehicles would be stationed, and so that I would hope that would also be in the franchise. And I'd like to thank the 3 board members that attended that meeting in the Fairview Fire Department. I'm closer to Skyland because of the Hubble relationship. So the concern is how much revenue are we going to lose as a county, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
First and foremost, I hope I see this much scrutiny when we do an arrangement with the 501(c), because I ain't never seen that in 20-some years of watching this board. So I hope I see it. I'll be looking for it. Number 2, if a company for profit can operate at the same price that the county's charging, who's taking money from who? It means somebody is doing it more efficient. And I strongly suggest you look at more franchise agreements to open up doors for competition, if you really believe in competition. Because you may find something that can come from a franchise that would improve the total service to the county at a lower cost. Isn't that amazing? What would be wrong with that? So what's wrong with giving these folks a franchise? And you want everything spelled out. How are you going to spell it out until after you inspect it, until after you see the facilities, and until after you decide where you're going to hold them and to what territory you're going to hold them to? You already discussed that a little bit. So the next step is you have to take this in steps. I hear steps all along up there. Well, we can't decide tonight, we got to do a step. So what's wrong with taking this first step? Because if you draw up an agreement that this company does not want to agree to, they have the right to refuse. So if you draw up your agreement properly and what you really want, there's no doubt that they will sign the franchise agreement. So again, remember, I want to see this much scrutiny on any agreement with any 501(c), because I saw $2.2 million given away on the excitement of standing up here talking about it's a great deal. And I got a little bit of glimmer of hope when I heard somebody mention budget and 20-year budget, because that's guess how the county has got to be run. Just like I run my house. You have a budget and you live by that budget. And if somebody can offer some service in a little area at the same price you're offering it for and make a profit, I think you better be studying what they're doing. By the way, Danielle, Jupiter, North Carolina.
Thank you. Gentleman in the back. Who raised his hand earlier? Oh, you're in the front end. You snuck up. There, right.
Hello, my name is Dan Friday. I'm a resident of Buncombe County. I'd like to share with you some things I've learned about Medic ambulance service. First, extending a franchise to the Opportunity Medic will open Pandora's box. It will open Buncombe County up to any other for-profit service that wants to operate within its boundaries, companies like Rural Metro and AMR. Second, Buncombe County looks to lose a considerable amount in revenue. Third, giving Medic a franchise to operate in the county will make the county ineligible for many federal grants. There's a possibility that this will trickle down to local fire departments as well. It is my understanding that the contract will include a clause that states the medic will be able to accept a call or not. This means that if 911 dispatches a medic unit and they're sitting in a parking lot across the street from where the call is going to take place, that they can deny that call and another unit would then need to be dispatched from further away. This could easily cause an avoidable death. Medic does not staff every ambulance with a paramedic. I've talked to several people in the industry that have stated that Kermit will meet an ambulance at the hospital so that there is a paramedic with the patient when they roll through the doors. I've also been told by a person who worked for Medic under conditions of anonymity that he was asked as an EMT intermediate to pose as a paramedic. They do not keep up currently with their own contract workload at the VA. They leave Riceville Fire Department to handle their slack. They have lied to the commissioners as soon as the last meeting when they stated that they had 8 ambulances. They actually have 7, one is a pickup truck. The rumor is that some of their ambulances will not meet the standards by OEM. No longer rumor, their newest ambulance is out of registration. It expired on a 30-day tag, and I've got a picture of it. It's running around on a 30-day tag. It expired in November of last year. They have a current complaint against them for an incident happening at an assisted living facility. Medics show up to a patient in severe distress, in need of IV fluids, and possibly going into sepsis. The medic staff should have picked up the patient and taken off to the hospital. Instead, they forced the staff to find a nurse practitioner to have her sign a medical necessity form that will take the patient, and it added an estimated 15 to 25 minutes to their on-site time. We also do not need them because the Keith Boss report to this board says that you all don't need them. Lastly, several fire departments could not be here today. Their boards and chiefs were threatened by the 3 commissioners pushing this Medic franchise. They were threatened that if they spoke out against this franchise agreement, they would have their budgets and funding cut. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Any other members of the public wish to comment? Sure. Mr. Collins.
Good afternoon. I'm Kermit Tully. You don't know me. I would like to respond to some of these allegations. Obviously, all these are very fictitious. I'm sorry. Obviously, the allegations against my department are fictitious. Statement number 1, at any time an EMS or ambulance agency may apply for a Buncombe County franchise. That's been in place for years. The ambulance ordinance exists. Anybody that wants to can come in here and apply for that. Statement number 2, there is no possible way to project any loss or gain. Since we're already doing this service, there'll be no change in what we're doing. I don't think there's a way that we would affect anybody's funding. Every fire department in Buncombe County is an independent organization. What my corporation does has no bearing on any other corporation. We have a primary station which is located in Neighbors Creek, and I know what this gentleman is referring to. We were called by Buncombe County 911 to stand by at this Valley Springs Skyland station because the Buncombe County unit was out of service, so we could service that area. We did have permission from Skyland's fire chief prior to responding to that location to make sure it was okay. Scotland's fire chief did write a letter indicating the same. Regarding choosing to accept or deny a call, every responder in Buncombe County has a duty to act. It is illegal not to respond to a call. We cannot do that. It doesn't matter what kind of person it is, and we have always responded to those calls. There was a remark against our response to the hurricanes down east. You have 4 different letters, the first one being from North Carolina Emergency Management. There was no allegations against Medic. All of those welcome us to come back, and we were very successful with those missions. Under general statute, credentialed personnel are required. The minimum requirement on an ambulance was an emergency medical responder and an EMT. We've held the VA contract for 31 years. You have 2 different documents where we have exceeded extraordinary measures with the VA.
Time's up. That's right.
That's fine. You have the information. If there's any questions, give me a call. Okay.
I'm Sharon Tolley, have been with Medic for 31 years. We have operated in this county 31 years. This is nothing new to us, you all know that. We're not coming in here from another state, starting a new ambulance service. We've been here that long. Talking about picking up people that, or not being able to respond to people that you don't know, or park somewhere and somebody falls out. Last Saturday, I went on a shopping trip to Walmart. I heard something across the room, and this person was desperately coughing. I mean, terrible. I thought it was an older person. So I immediately take my buggy and I go hunt it. Where was this coming from? I got with this young girl. She was having an asthma attack. I called 911. You know, that's the second time I've ever called 911 in my life. But I called 911. I didn't know who I was going to get. Didn't matter. The woman was choking. I needed help. I took her to the front of the store, and my ambulance came. Buncombe County EOC sent them. When their Buncombe County EOC tells them where to park their units, early in the morning, and midday, and late at night. And when the closest ambulance can go to the person, there it is. Okay, my 2 guys got this lady, put her in the ambulance, put her in the back, and they treated her with an oxygen and a breathing treatment is what she needed. Well, at that point, she can either go to the hospital or she can refuse. Well, she didn't want to go because she didn't have any insurance. After they'd given her all this treatment and everything, they helped her out of the back of the ambulance. And her mom picked her up, and she went home. So, does that sound like somebody that would turn somebody down? I would never. One of the things in this county that we did when we first got started, just to get started, we took any child down to Chapel Hill that had to have more treatment, free. We took them free, not because we, had all this rolling money, but we let the family ride with that child. And that was the way we got all our calls for Mission Hospital. Thank you. I think my time's up.
All right, anybody else?
But with Riceville doing our contract calls with the VA, I can absolutely assure you they don't. The only VA transports that they might do is not contract. when anyone falls outside on the parking lot, that's not a contract VA call. And they should absolutely call 911 for the closest ambulance. It's what anybody should do. And those patients should absolutely have the closest truck, just like anyone else. And I believe that that's what should be done with anybody. If my truck is sitting downtown and there's a truck across the street, which one would you rather send? The closest truck, which would be the Roswell's truck. And I believe that's true as well. So, but that's not a contract patient. So I just want to clarify a few things like that, because that's the things that I do every day.
All right, thank you.
I think I recall just.
No, I'm sorry, you can't. Just one bite at the apple. So, all right, anybody else? All right, bring it back to the commission for further discussion. I do have a couple of follow-up questions though. So, I guess I'll go to Mr. Frew first, and you might ask some other folks their thoughts on this. So on this question about if this is approved, is Medic Inc. required to transport people on every call? Are they required to provide the transportation?
That's what's in my draft for the agreement. I understand that George Wood met with Mr. Tolley a couple of months ago, and they discussed how the service might be provided, what assurances of service would be included. And that's when they discussed putting GPS on the trucks. Then they'd be equipped just like any other emergency apparatus that operates this service for the county. So if they're directed by EMS to be stationed at corner X, Y, and Z, that's where they would be stationed. If they're in service, they have to reply. If they're out of service, that is, they're responding to some call already, or they're already out of service at the hospital or transporting them, they can't. They wouldn't be called.
So it might be a requirement in the agreement.
It is. It should be.
It should be, okay. Because I've heard different, I've heard it different ways, like that may or may not be required. So good. And on this question about the vehicles being where they're going to be stationed.
That's the same point. I mean, where they would be staged, it'd be staged is, I understand the plan, where EMS would ask them to be staged.
Okay, and that'll be in the franchise agreement that they must follow that direction and they must stage their vehicles where directed, and only in those places. Is that
Well, again, I think there's other personnel here that could explain better, but I think sometimes a vehicle would be en route from point A to point B. They might end up being the closest. That's part of the purpose of the EMS system through the 911 out of the castle. They try to get the closest person. So that may not be the stage place. It might be they're going back to that stage from the hospital, for instance, but essentially, yes. But there is a caveat to that.
Okay, well, thank you. I think those are just really, that's part of why I would like to see the agreement come back, because I think the details of that stuff, if these are requirements or just sort of, how tight that agreement is important. So I don't have any other questions about it right now. Anybody else?
Yeah. Understanding that we're voting on to get these three things on the back right now, right?
Well, those three items would be,
Yes,
they are incorporated in the motion.
that's always motion.
Yes, the agreement's coming back.
And then we're gonna have a contract to vote on next, right?
If all goes according to plan, yes, sir.
But I thought I just heard a while ago there was no contract yet. No agreement. And then someone has seen one online that's a 5-year instead of a 1 year.
I don't know where.
And then Bernie just brought up, and you said, yes, that is in the contract. So I'm kind of confused. Are they a contract or not?
Currently, no.
Currently, no. Nothing online or anything.
Not in terms of the contract.
Where are we seeing this?
Well, the ordinance, excerpts of the ordinance are online. The ordinance allows a franchise up to 5 years.
Okay.
It's the direction I've received from this board and the county manager to proceed toward a 1 year.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from.
Yeah.
What was put before us originally that we voted on, that was part of it. That 5 years was there, but it was a 1 year deal. It was sent back to change that you couldn't stage areas or move areas. That's what you were instructed to do in that ordinance to be brought back to us. That's never been brought back to us. We have a totally different deal tonight that, you know, it's, the main thing is, it's gone, if they pass the OMC, I guess that's the thing, I'll give you the sheet, then that's all good. Then everything that they have as far as the franchise, we're voting on the franchise, that's all good. We're giving them 1 year to make sure that everything's right, instead of 5 years to make it, you know, the way it works. So we're trying an area. That way we can figure out if it does hurt anybody in the county. But they have 2 places they stage now. At their main office, that's after in night most of the time. And they have a place over in town over here, I can't remember the address. We're not doing anything different. We're just trying to get them legal. They work for us anyway. Why not, you know, I don't understand why we don't want to make them legal to work for us. That's, and, you know, if there's 2 ambulances down today and they ask them to put 2 on, they do. Excuse me. But it's, let's just get this part done, see what OMA says. If they disagree with the Tollies, then they disagree with them. We're looking at how this will work out in the whole process. I have received all kinds of stuff in emails, and especially from the gentleman with, they're sitting on the front row, that they, all these things that they didn't have, well, they do. Everything, we have the emails too, from the people from Skyland, from all the people down on the coast, that they accepted their, and they really responded very well. And it wasn't just what you're condemning to that west coast or down in the east coast, down in the area for the hurricane. There was 3 different people or areas working with them. I don't know the counties, but there's 3 other counties down there working. So I guess they're all bad too. I guess everything that they do is wrong in the process. If we see something that's wrong in the 6 months process of this deal, I'll be one of the first to stop it. I promise you. They're just asking to get radios turned on. The franchise gets the radios turned on for them, that everybody else has got. They have them. It's not that they have to install them. They've been in there for a long time, ever since Viper come out. But it's just turn them on. That way y'all can hear what they have to do and where they're being sent. That way nobody can say they're out riding around trying to get work. And that's plain and simple. But, you know, when you make allegations against people, that's not good. If you don't have the facts, you got a problem. And I think you got a problem. So Chairman, can I have the motion read?
Well, I got another.
All right.
I mean, can we call Permit or anyone back up to ask him a question? I'd like to ask Mr. Friday to come up and restate what you said about 3 commissioners threatening that they would, I hope you got proof of that. I hope you got
Actually,
proof.
I have witnesses that were at the meeting. It was an open board meeting. I've been asked not to mention anybody's name because they're all worried that you guys are going to cut their funding, just like you promised that you would.
Isabel,
Okay, so y'all can talk about this all night if you want to,
Yeah,
but I personally don't see it going anywhere. Some of them, I would like to have the motion restated, and for clarity purposes. I'd like to have the motion restated.
Michael,
So that we're clear, please.
what you understand to be the motion?
So this would be a motion to approve granting of a franchise to medical emergency ambulance transport as the application has been received and the board finds that the public will be served by granting the applicant a franchise consistent with this article. The application is accurate and complete. The applicant has provided adequate evidence of its ability to provide safe, adequate, and responsible service, and evidence that no owner, operator, agent, or employee or applicant has been debarred from the Medicare or Medicaid program. The applicant holds all necessary licenses and permits from OEMS or will fully be qualified to obtain all necessary licenses upon award of the franchise. And this award is contingent upon satisfactory inspection of all medical facilities and ambulances by OEMS, and that staff is directed to negotiate on a franchise agreement going back to the board in a couple of weeks.
So, Mr. Chairman, to protect the decorum of this chamber, I'm going to call the question unless another commissioner has a comment so that we can vote on it.
Are there any commissioners who haven't commented on the motion who'd like to comment? Okay, I'd like to make just one final comment. I am gonna vote against the motion. I voted against it before, I'm just still in the same place. To me, the main reason I'm gonna vote against it is that I do have a significant concern that creating a for-profit franchise will undermine the system of public emergency response agencies that we have in the county. Because there's a certain number of calls that are going to happen every year for folks who need this service. And if a greater percentage of those calls get taken by the for-profit entity, the only way these agencies have money is through the revenues they generate from providing services and the tax money that we as taxpayers invest. If their revenues are cut into by the for-profit entity, that means they have less funding to operate their organizations, and they have to pay their staff, they have to pay for their equipment, and less funding for the volunteer fire districts means it will degrade their services over time, unless we raise taxes. If we raise the tax rates for those districts, that could compensate for that, but if we're going to raise the tax rates in the fire districts, I would much rather it be to actually improve the level of service of those districts rather than just raising taxes to keep it the same as it is today. So for those reasons, I'm going to vote against it. With that said, if it is going to go into effect, then I think the details of this agreement are really important. So I do look forward to talking about some of the details of that, even though I'll probably still vote against it, but I hope that we can work out some of those issues when it comes back. So thank you for your consideration. All in favor? All right, one more. Last draft.
Keep on walking in a circle here. So Kermit or Maddie has been doing this for my 3 years here. So what happens if Maddie just says, hey, you're not going to give me this franchise, and they quit taking these 107 calls average a month? How are we going to staff enough fire and EMS to take care of this?
Well, I guess if you're asking me that question, Commissioner Presley, I would say if you're going to say they're already doing this, then another question would be, well, if they're already doing this, then why is this agreement needed if it's the status quo? Go ahead.
Radio. Because they're having to go. I'm having to go through Jasmine to talk to you. You got to go back through Jasmine and talk to me. That's what all this is about.
Well, part of my perspective on this, and I'm not an attorney, so we got Michael Frew and Heather Hockaday to help advise on this stuff, but if they do receive an approved actual legal franchise agreement with Buncombe County, I believe they will have additional rights as a business entity to operate under that don't exist today. So I think that which again, people can agree to disagree about whether that's a good thing, but they would have additional rights that don't exist today without the franchise. And to expand, to not just do what they're doing today, but to possibly expand it, unless there's provisions in the agreement that place limits and regulations on how it's operated, it could be expanded in ways that could be undermining to the volunteer fire districts in the county. So again, I think the details of how that's going to work are all, very important. I mean, because there's no guarantee it's just going to always be operated the way it has been in the past. If they have an approved legal franchise agreement with Buncombe County, they will have the right as a business to do whatever they're allowed under that. And if there's not a lot of details that limit that, it's fairly open-ended.
But that's what we just talked about. There are going to be details that he will be called upon needed.
Well, let's see that. That's what's going to be in the contract. We've
Well,
still never seen it. And I'm not blaming the staff for that. I think they've worked hard to get the things together for this meeting that are here, and there's just some more time needed to prepare those documents, I believe.
So that's what we're directing them to do, is what you just said. So I'm going to call the question one more time.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say aye. Aye. Passes 4-3. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Fruit. All right, we come to new business. And we're going to be discussing consideration of approval of a resolution authorizing execution of contracts and agreements involving Inca Center and Sports Park. And Tim Love is going to help us out on this one.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. At this time, Josh O'Connor, our Recreation Services Director, is joining me up front, and may call Michael Fruit as well to provide some legal guidance. Today we are considering two formal requests of the board. One is to authorize agreements and move forward with those.
Get in that mic, because this is really good stuff.
And so our secondary request is for additional consideration on parking lot lighting at Bob Lewis Ballpark. In your packet, you have a number of memos, or 2 memos, a total of 6 agreements, and then a resolution that I'll ask you to approve later on. To facilitate this discussion, though, I would like to bring up a PowerPoint presentation. Thank you, Matt. All right, so request number 1 today. So we're requesting that the Board of County Commissioners approve the resolution authorizing the chairman to execute the following agreements. In that packet, there are 6 agreements. Those include an agreement with the TDA, which is a reimbursable grant agreement. Additionally, there is a usage and operating agreement with EYSO that defines public purpose for fields operated by EYSO. Additionally, there's a greenway and operating easement agreement. This basically sets up the transfer of parcels to Buncombe County for use for the greenway. In addition, there is an additional agreement between EYSO and Buncombe County that grants the easement that's required to construct that greenway. And finally, there are 2 must-go lighting contracts, and those 2 agreements are in your packet. One is for Bob Lewis Ballpark, the other is for the Buncombe County Sports Park. Just a quick note on history. This project was brought to you in 2014. There's been a lot of progress since then, culminating in last year's opening of the Bob Lewis Ballparks, as well as the approval of the TDA TPDF $6 million grant fund. In terms of the project itself, you've heard about this a number of times, so I will not spend much time, but just to refresh the audience, the total Enca Recreation Destination Project is a $12 million project that includes funding sources from the TDA as well as the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners at $1.2 million, and finally the Federal Highway Agency at $4.8 million. There are a number of things that will happen with this project. I will not read this slide to you, but I will tell you that there will be an Enca Heritage Trail. In addition, there will be updates at the Buncombe County Sports Park, and finally, updates at Bob Lewis Ballpark as well. Primarily, the updates at the ballparks will include turfing and lighting, which is key to recruiting tournaments to our area. This is an overview of the Enca Recreation Project. Again, not going to spend a lot of time here. You've seen this, but it gives you an idea of the overall layout and where the Enca Heritage Trail will meet with different amenities, including ballparks, as well as additional amenities such as restrooms and dog parks.
I think it is repetitious for us to hear it, But I think it's okay to, which would be very quick. I think there are like 14, I don't know if Josh is going to do this or not, go through the 14 assets that are part of that. I think it'd be good information for those that are here that haven't heard it before.
Absolutely, and I would pivot to Josh, who, if you could come up and sort of walk through those quick assets.
Thanks.
I was afraid I put the time for nothing.
I was going to call you out.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So the first thing we've got is the 3 turf fields. Those are tournament quality turf fields capable of holding 11 versus 11 soccer matches. We also have lighting for those turf fields, which will allow us to extend playability by at least 5 months at Buncombe County Sports Park, as well as adding those nighttime hours. Unfortunately, due to the damage at the John B. Lewis Soccer Complex, we're now moving a lot of practices to the Buncombe County Sports Park to offset that load, and I believe Mike from ABYC will provide some background on how much of that load we're holding now. We're also going to add 4,000 feet of linear surface trails to help with park circulation, handicap accessibility upfits, so that for both new and old components of this project, we will allow more of our citizens to be able to access that. Additional parking, a challenge course, which is a fitness course that will allow folks to compete against one another. We're hoping to integrate that through social media so they'll be able to compete with sites around the country. A yacht court, which is a 4-way indoor-outdoor court hybrid that can be reprogrammed for a number of sports, and it's designed around the idea of accessibility and inclusivity. Sports agility course, just to complement both large-scale athletic facilities that we have out there, and focus on a kind of birth to retirement mentality for fitness. Picnic pavilion with restrooms and Wi-Fi capability up at our current orchard area to create some new educational opportunities at the dog park, and then displacing our current community play space within the sports park with a new recreational quality field outside of the sports park that will be connected by the Greenway. The Inca Heritage Trail will include 2 bridge crossings over Hominy Creek and 2 miles of Greenway. And with the Bob Lewis Ballpark, we have the 7 lighting sets, which will allow them to extend their playability and tournament offerings by at least 30%.
One of those utilizes a old railroad trestle, doesn't it?
That's correct. We're going to be repurposing
Very cool.
The railroad trestle that went into the Inca plant. And it's a beautiful trestle. It goes right over Hominy Creek, and hopefully we can add some fishing and some other activities to that as well.
You didn't waste that time, buddy.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Josh. If no other questions, I'll continue moving forward in the presentation. Real quickly, our timeline for the project, just want to make sure everyone understands where we're at and where we're going. Project conclusion on the far right would be July 2022. That is, of course, following any setbacks in timing. Based on your authorization this evening of the agreements we placed in front of you, that would allow us to move forward with the near-term milestones of October 2019 and May 2019 to get lighting installed at Bob Lewis and the Buncombe County Sports Park respectively.
So did I read that correct, that Buncombe County Sports Park turfing is in October? When is the turfing happening on the sports park?
Getting the lighting nailed down is the first step, because that frees up the funding. It's really going to depend on how fast we can activate contracts for engineering and when we choose to displace the soccer season. I think there's some decisions to be made there in terms of how many fields we're pulling offline and what we can afford to pull offline with our current capabilities. And that's not just looking at ours, that's looking at the cities and soccer overall. So we want to be careful about when we activate that. And that'll be a conversation that we hold pretty closely with the soccer community.
Because you're staging that, you want to make sure the community has access to the fields. You're not going to go in there and shut down a bunch of fields and then try to do a bunch of work. You still want to.
Correct, and we also, one of the ways that we maintain Buncombe County Sports Park is to recruit tournaments during the off-season that include lacrosse and things that normally don't play during soccer season. So we don't want to launch this project in the middle of those commitments.
Yeah, how big was that lacrosse tournament that you had a lacrosse tournament there last spring? Oh, it was huge.
It was over 100 teams and generated
over 2,500 hotel room nights.
Yeah, it was a big.
But I will say, it's not anywhere close to the biggest sporting event that's hosted at Buncombe County Sports Park.
Okay.
Thank you, Josh. All right, moving forward, so an overview of our agreements. I've spoken to you at a high level about these. This table displays each of the agreements, the purpose of the agreement, the estimated value if there is a value. In some places it's not applicable, and the entities that would be engaging in the agreements. So I'll summarize very quickly for you. Again, all of these agreements are in your packet. They've been reviewed by our legal, our finance, our recreation services, as well as the stakeholders on the other side of these agreements. So EYSO, Fletcher Partners, Anchor Partners, etc. The TDA grant agreement, again, this establishes the reimbursable relationship between us and the TDA to move forward on the $6 million project. That means that we will pay and then ask for reimbursement. The EYSO usage and operating agreement, this defines public purpose for use of the fields. The Greenway easement grant, this defines the parcels that will be transferred so that we can construct the Enka Heritage Trail. The agreement between EYSO and Buncombe County, this establishes the terms of the easement in the future that would be granted to Buncombe County to construct that greenway. Then we then have two Musco lighting agreements. These are direct bids that we received on a purchase agreement. One is for Bob Lewis Ballpark for $1.3 million. The other $565,000 for the Buncombe County Sports Park. Are there any questions on these agreements?
We have a usage agreement, which means the public will be able to use the ball fields for a plus or minus number of hours, correct?
That is correct. We've defined a certain number of days or evenings that would be used for, open for public use through recreation services. In addition, we built into the agreement an annual check-in between EYSO and recreation services, which would define the upcoming year's schedule. So if we see that we need additional time, that would be the time to sort of begin that negotiation. If we see that we need less time, that way as well. Any additional questions on the agreements? All right. So our recommendation as staff is that you move forward with the Enka Recreation Project by authorizing the chairman of the board to execute these agreements. As a quick note, we shared with you earlier, there was one agreement where there are some minor changes that we would like to make. We would ask that you authorize the chairman to approve those changes as well. If there are any changes that impact cost, we would bring that back before the board, but we do not anticipate that happening. Our goal today is to authorize these agreements if the board is so willing, so that we do not have to bring these agreements back before the board, so that we can move forward with the project.
I don't have any questions. Just a comment. I know there's been a lot of work put into this.
Can't hear you.
Many months, but particularly over the last, especially over the last few weeks preparing for this. I just want to say thanks to you, Tim, and Michael, and everyone, Josh, and everyone on the county staff who've been working on this. Because there's a lot of different parts to this, and we want to make sure we're putting it all in place. As the funding is actually about to begin, we're about to start making these significant investments. So thank you to you and the property owners and all the other partners who've been involved in kind of pulling this together so that we can be prepared to act on it tonight. Thank you. Let's take public comment, and we're going to need to vote on each of these items separately, I believe.
It's in one resolution, and as Tim explained, it gives the chair the opportunity, if need be, to make any changes consistent with the board's action.
So if we approve the resolution, we're in essence approving all of the separate agreements as part of it.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, are there any public comments on this item? Yes, sir. And then, next.
My name is Mike Ratchikob. I'm the Executive Director of Asheville Buncombe Youth Soccer Association. I'm here this evening to represent our organization in the Asheville Buncombe Adult Soccer Association and to encourage you to move forward with the ambitious Enka Recreation Destination Project. It represents the largest investment in recreation by Buncombe County in over a decade. And we want to applaud your commitment to increasing the opportunities for children, adults, and families in our community. In our fiscal years ending June 30th, 2018, ABYSA and ABASA served 7,905 unique participants in our recreation and competitive soccer programs. This was only possible through important partnerships that we have with Buncombe County and the City of Asheville, who provide critical field resources for our programs. Buncombe County Sports Park is an essential asset that is currently underutilized due to the limitations of the natural grass playing surfaces and the lack of sports field lighting. The planned improvements at Buncombe County Sports Park will immediately increase the number of hours and days that our youth and adult participants can engage in vigorous exercise. It will allow the program growth and expansion, and will help us to make even larger contributions to the variety of businesses that benefit from sports tourism. Our programs have grown year over year for 2 decades, but that growth has been muted over the last 5 years due to limited play space. In 2018, there were 12 weekends of tournaments that utilized Buncombe County Sports Park and other facilities that generated 9,677 documented hotel room night stays. The Inca Destination Project is a great example of a public-private partnership that will benefit citizens and businesses alike. And it's a great example of the Buncombe County Tourism Development Authority's promotion of the idea that tourism builds community. We are excited to be partners in this project and excited to deliver to the community the benefits that this project offers our mutual constituents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Emily Sutton-Desio. I'm here on behalf of Connect Inca. Connect Inca is a nonprofit group that supports connectivity and walkability of our community. We started years ago, I think probably 2012, with our walk and bike to school days. This Inca Heritage Trail really has the ability to connect Sand Hill Elementary School, Inca Intermediate School, potentially Inca High School and Jaime Valley Elementary School to a trail system and to the park. I do really support the accountability and the transparency of having these agreements in writing so that they're binding on future commissions, on you, and as we grow, looking at the timeline, it's important that we make sure that what you decide today doesn't get changed by a future board. We applaud you and support the construction of the Inca Heritage Trail. We applaud you and support the construction of the bridge across the Honey Creek to connect soccer and baseball fields. As the mother of a 10-year-old who plays travel ball, I especially like the public use declaration. It's really exciting to have this park in our backyard. I can personally attest to the income and tourism as we travel to all of the other communities, Johnson City, Greenville, and spend a lot of money when doing the travel ball. It is my hope also as the Vice President of Inca Candler Business Association that the park will attract restaurants to the Candler community. The only complaint I would have is that the construction of the Heritage Trail is the last in line and not being built concurrently with the other projects. And I don't like that it necessarily starts at the end. I would really like to see it start at the beginning. There's really no reason. It's not designed in the design phase. It doesn't lay in opposition or in the way of your soccer fields or the lights of the bridge. It can be done at the same time. And so to wait and put that at the end makes me worried that that would be the thing that gets cut if we run out of money. So I would encourage you to consider asking that it be built concurrent and not waiting. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Glenn Satterfield. I live in Inca Village, which is a community directly across the street from Jacob Home and adjacent to the ballpark. I've lived in the same home for 24 years. I moved here from Charlotte in 1995, raised my 3 grown children, and hopefully my first grandchild is going to be here in July, and they will also spend numerous hours in my home and in the community there. Our neighbors have asked me to speak to you in support of the resolution to complete the Inca Heritage Trail, as well as funding the lights, turf, and parking connectivity between the soccer and softball fields. I'm out in the public through various volunteer opportunities. I spend a lot of days and afternoons at Inca High School announcing local sports, probably 30 to 50 days a year. I speak with a lot of parents. A lot of parents are very excited about what's going on across the street from our neighborhood. When the topic comes up, it is very well received. And they're very excited about the continued funding of this project. And our goal for our community and what we're looking forward to most is making it more walkable. So our focus is around the Inca Trail and the lighting to keep the people coming back in need. Thank you.
Right. Any other items of public? Jerry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, member of the board. I've been gone a while. I guess he wanted to send me back. He looked pretty pitiful on TV, but at home, it wasn't exciting. Anyway, I know that the public is just going to fall out of their seat clapping for me today, but when greed takes the place of safety, there's something wrong. The Inca plant, the whole 200 and some acres, should never have a building put on it, period. The contamination on that place is pathetic. The ball fields and all this stuff you talk about, and you're putting money into, you're looking at safety? No, you ain't. You're taking the word of a lot of people that haven't done their homework. It's easy to get people enthusiastic over sports. But when it comes to what I know about the Inca plant, it'll be in the most contaminated place in Buncombe County as a whole. It's pathetic that we've got commissioners that is praising all these projects out there. And in the future, this is pathetic. I have never seen, if we had our old time people, you know, out here on the environmental end, this would have never happened. But we don't have them people anymore. They're dead. They've even got deed restrictions on these properties out there. You can't even put an animal shelter thing on the property at any. What do you think about that? If you can't have that, what are you doing putting human life on it? My God, these people need to be educated out here in this audience, and I ain't got time. What I'd like to know is the ball field has got a board of directors. And we have a person that's sitting on this board by the name of Joe Belcher. That Joe Belcher, and I don't know where it's him or not, is on the board of directors, and I've asked Joe personally, and he won't admit yes or no to it.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, you wouldn't admit it. And I want to know if he is or not, because it'd be a conflict in that situation. And if it's not him, I want to know who that Joe Belcher is, because I can't find pictures. So that's another question. But my concern is health and safety. You're connecting all these things, you're connecting the streams, you're connecting all these walkways. And let me tell you what, I've lived here 60 years in the Inca community. And I've got plenty of relatives and everybody that went through that plant. And let me tell you, the horror stories that I can tell you, and don't you think they're gone? They're not. This property is pathetic. And you need to wake up and quit praising it for a bed night for a hotel.
All right, thanks, Jerry. And anybody else? Mr. Yeldon.
I surprised myself, I wasn't gonna say anything. But I did want to add this to what Jerry said. You asked the previous board, go call Tom Sullivan, David Gann, Patsy Kiefer, David Young, and ask them how many times I told them they were gonna have problems at CTS. Does that ring a bell? Doesn't CTS ring a bell? You can nod your head or do something or wink to let me know you're hearing me. What I know for a fact, when I was taking my hazardous waste course, when I was an employee of Buncombe County, I had the young man who was a chemist for American Inca teaching that course. And Jerry's followed this a whole lot closer than I have. We were talking about the Inca plant and the landfill. And I said, I've heard some stuff about that landfill, what all's in there. He said, son, we don't know, nobody knows, but there's everything in the world in it. Because the Inca plant made rayon tires during World War II. Just like CTS, it was legal to dump that PCE on the ground out there at that time. And in World War II was going on, you had something toxic, harmful, and you need to get rid of it. What'd you do with it? It's time of war, folks. You didn't have time to contemplate. You got rid of it. That question has never been answered. And I said that just because I wanted you all to know. Jerry's not foolish. He's not talking out his you-know-what. He's actually sharing some information with you. That is true. You may not believe me, that's fine. But I was right about CTS. And I was also right about some corruption in Buncombe County for 20 years, wasn't it? Thank you.
All right, you may. All right, bring back the board. And Josh, you want to comment on?
I just wanted to clarify the timeline a little bit. We, as soon as we move through these agreements and we have them fully executed between ourselves and EYSO and all the players, we're actually going to design on the Greenway now. But we have learned that through our experience with Woodfin, that's a more time-consuming process than we originally anticipate, largely because of the issues that have been raised here with potential environmental contamination and regulatory agencies. So we do budget a considerable amount of time there. We'll be moving through that, and that's one of the reasons that the timeline for constructing the Greenway does take so long. The other reason is that we're passing funds down from the federal government to North Carolina state government to us, and it's a lengthy process to get those funds rolling. We have to use all of their procurement processes and procedures in addition to our own, and we've learned the hard way with Woodfin that it's not as fast as we would like to move it. So that's the timeline that we've given as our own most honest guess for the timeline. There's really no chance of running out of funding in terms of between the Greenway and the sports components. They're two different funding pots, and we're not allowed to remove funding from the Greenway portion and place it on the sports components because it is federal highway funding and it has to go to transportation. So I want to make that clear.
Thank you. The 4.8 million has to, I mean, people don't have to worry about Greenway. As far as Chairman, could I comment on the board position? If I am on that board, I've missed a whole lot of meetings because I have not attended those. Period. Do not have any. It's ridiculous. I am not on that board. So next subject. And it's late, or I wouldn't show a little frustration. I apologize for that.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. I'll just make one comment. You know, there is a history of environmental contamination in this area. That's no secret. But I don't agree with the comments that nobody has looked at this or put a lot of serious thought into. There's a lot of limits on what can happen on the property. There's a lot of things that just will never be allowed there because of the contamination history there. But that doesn't mean that nothing can ever be done there. There's a lot of good uses for brownfields, and you know, and I think this, you know, there's been a lot of thought put into assuring that public health and safety is taken into consideration for the plans for this site. So, if there's nothing else, all in favor of we do have a motion in a second, don't we? We do. Who made?
I'll move.
We have. Okay.
Enthusiastically move approval.
All right, we have a motion.
I'm late for a board meeting.
And a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. All right, we've got a couple of budget amendments, and Jennifer Chilton.
Mr. Chairman. One additional item for your consideration related to this project.
Okay.
So, communications, if I could have the slides back, please. Thank you. All right, so in addition to moving forward with the agreements that we just discussed, there is an additional consideration for parking lot lighting at Bob Lewis Ballpark, and I'll walk you through that now. So we are requesting the Board of County Commissioners to authorize our county manager So examine funding methods and negotiate a lease up to $16,000 annually for lease lighting at the parking lots at Bob Lewis Ball Field. I'll walk you through that now. Bob Lewis parking lot lighting, basically, we are adding lights that will allow evening tournaments. However, the parking lots are not lit, so there is a question of the safety related to that. So today we are bringing that before you to help mitigate these safety concerns for visitors who are attending evening games. As you're aware, lighting is a key component of the overall project and our ability to recruit tournaments. So we want to make sure that we have a safe environment. These costs were not captured in the original TDA grant application, but nonetheless, we believe it's valuable and something that you should explore. An initial question as we looked into purchase of lights for the parking lot was whether or not there was a more cost-efficient way to finance this. So that began us down the path of looking into lease options. I won't bore you with the details, but leasing makes a lot of sense when you're looking at lower out-of-pocket costs, as well as looking at shorter-term projects. We've conducted some preliminary analysis to estimate leasing costs, and I will present that to you on the next slide. I want to caution you that these estimates are illustrative. We base these estimates based on other work at Buncombe County facilities, including the sports park, as well as Owen Park and Lake Julian, to get an idea of cost. We've also requested costs, initial costs, a pricing sheet from Duke, to get an idea of how these costs would shake up. The table lays out the cost for you from 2019 through 2025. We've given you three scenarios here. One scenario, the highest, assumes $30 lease per light. There's a $25 option and a $20 option. You'll see that the purchase cost would be $300,000 as estimated by Musco. In the year 2019, these are partial costs since we're already partially through the year. Your first year of full cost would be in 2020. As you can see, over a cumulative period of time, as you can see, the cost range on an annual basis from $12,000 annually up to $18,000 annually. Cumulatively, through 2025, you're looking at a range between $80,000 and $120,000. Based on our analysis of the situation, if you were to move forward, we would recommend that you look at leasing versus purchase, given the out-of-pocket expense, as well as the potential break-even time. The break-even time for each of these options ranges between 16 and 25 years. That's the initial analysis. If there's any questions, I'm glad to field those. Otherwise, I'll move to our recommendation.
We currently lease our other lights at the ball fields.
Pardon?
We currently lease our lights at our other fields.
That is correct. We have a number of leased lights at the Buncombe County Sports Park and others that I'm sure Josh could allude to.
Okay.
So our recommendation is based on the initial research that we've conducted, that this board vote formally to approve that or authorize our county manager to negotiate a lease agreement with the appropriate vendor up to $16,000 annually. If staff are unable to negotiate a lease for that price, we would bring this back to you, to the board. Our goal, though, is for, if you are so willing, to approve this so that we do not have to bring it back before the board by setting a maximum threshold. Are there any questions?
So moved.
Second. Aye.
Thank you, and good evening.
Number one, which is a budget amendment request for our grant projects fund. Buncombe County receives federal grant funding for administration and direct benefit dollars for the RIDE program, which is the Ridership Independence for Disabled and Elderly program. The county provides a 50% match for the expenses incurred after participant voucher revenues are accounted for. The participant's cost is $2.50 per $10 voucher that they're able to receive through this program. Those revenues are estimated to be $36,170. The federal share amount is estimated to be $65,850, and therefore the county match also $65,850. This amendment enables us to budget the revenues and the expenses in the grant fund. as the funding is for multi-year use based on the federal fiscal year. The amendment additionally enables us to transfer the county match portion already accounted for in the transportation fund into the grant fund. So we request approval for that.
And let's go ahead and just touch on each of them. So if you want to go ahead and do the second one, and if there.
Yes. So in the budget amendment summary, items number 2 and 3 are related. Budget amendment request number 2 is our special programs fund. Previously approved have been conservation easements on behalf of the Soil Conservation Department. We are ready to close several of those previously approved conservation easements. And those that are outlined here do have project savings as a result. Those savings amount to $16,666. The request from Soil Conservation is to use those savings for the conducting of a farmland protection plan. As I understand it, the last time that the county engaged with someone to conduct a farmland protection plan was approximately 10 years ago. So Soil Conservation is asking to transfer these funds to their general fund operating budget to engage with a consultant to conduct a farmland protection plan. And it is outlined that it's a tool used by county and municipal governments in developing recommendations for policies and projects aimed at maintaining the economic viability of the state's agricultural industry and its supporting land base. Number 4, this is an Article 46 Capital Projects Fund request. So this is related to the Article 46 monies for AV Tech. June 19th, 2018, the budget for AV Tech existing debt service payments was amended effective for July 1st, 2018. However, there have been no budgetary adjustments to professional services and capital fund maintenance budgets since April of 2018. The fiscal year 2019 plan, which you have recently reviewed with AV Tech, includes $225,000 of anticipated professional services and a total of $3,850,000 for capital plan maintenance and elm water repair. After meeting with Interim General Services Director Pamela Freeman King, as well as Greg Israel, we arrived at these budgetary adjustment requests. We're requesting $198,162 be budgeted in professional services, and that $2,356,838 for capital plan maintenance. And the Vinoy construction document in alignment with that dollar request is attached to the agenda. What I will note is that these dollars are in keeping with the current plan that you just recently reviewed for fiscal year 2019 expenditures. The offsetting source of funding for these expenses is $150,000 of savings, which was previously budgeted for the elm water remediation, and that actually has been taken care of in the contract that was for the capital plan maintenance phase 1 for $3.7 million that this board reviewed and approved on October 2nd, 2018. So the total request of $2,405,000, again, is in keeping with the identified plan already outlined.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on any of these budget amendments? All right. Let's take them in order. Is there a motion to approve the first item, which is related to the grant projects fund? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there, so there's, the items 2 and 3 are both related to the conservation easements, and using the savings to create the farmland protection plan. Can we approve them as a single motion, those 2 items, or do we need to do 2 and then 3?
Can't hear you.
Is there a motion to approve the second and third budget amendment items, which are both related to the conservation easements program and the farmland protection plan?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And is there a motion to approve budget item number 4, which is related to Article 46 capital funding ABTech? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Jennifer, thanks so much. All right, we come to board appointments.
So I'm gonna make a recommendation for Barbara Weatherall, Ruth O'Donnell, Lynn Lee Garner for Labrador.
I'll second that motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Should we interview folks for the Mountain Community Capital Fund Operating Committee? There's 2 vacancies. There is a recommendation for, from the committee, I believe.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
There is also an additional item behind that that was submitted by the Mr. Tim Love. I don't know if y'all have had a chance to look at that, but it's an item with the recommendation and some information.
On a board? Board one?
Yes.
Where is it?
It should be a memo right after the actual listing of the boards.
So I'm fine going ahead and voting on this tonight. Is everybody, okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Jeffrey Kaplan and Robin Payne. Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks. And I think that's all we needed to, that's all we had to do with the boards and commissions tonight. So let's go to public comment.
Didn't we have sports?
Oh, Sports Commission.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Thank you for catching that. So we had some discussion about this at the last meeting. And so, yeah, we can follow up on that and get that.
I make a motion.
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Amanda Edwards to fill a seat on the Sports Commission for the commission.
All right. I'll second it. I know Commissioner Belcher was also interested in it, you know, so.
Yeah, I don't.
It's, it's a good thing to have more than one person who's interested in it. Y'all would, of course, either of you would do a great job. So.
I almost put the board on.
I would really like to serve on that board.
She's new to put her to work. Yeah. So, all right, so I'll vote for you this time, you vote for me next time, how's that? All right, I'll let it go.
Yeah.
All right.
Unless somebody else wants it.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Belcher, and thank you, Commissioner Edwards, for working that out. Okay, now we come to public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to the board about any items that we haven't previously had public comment on at our meeting this evening? Mr. Young. And then we'll come over here next.
It's fun watching you guys. It's like a bouncing ball. And I heard some things tonight that I just got to comment on. If a for-profit takes money from the county, think about what I'm saying. If a 501(c) doesn't pay taxes, where does the money come from? Just maybe, I know from experience, that government service improves when they have to compete with a for-profit corporation. This has been found in the trash industry, folks. What did you do with your garbage? Pickup. You farmed it out. What did the city of Asheville do to process their recyclables? Who processes recyclables? Can the two companies in Buncombe County that have recyclables both process them? No, only one. Just maybe, if more franchises were offered, the services might just improve. I think I just heard at the last of the night, you're going to lease lights for the ball field? That's a franchise, folks. Why don't you do your own lights if you're supposed to do everything? It's cheaper to lease it from a for-profit company. How about clean buildings? Do you do a franchise on that? Very obviously, AB Tech didn't do too good a contract on cleaning their buildings, did they? Or maintaining their maintenance. And folks, if I remember correctly, this county has given AB Tech money every year it's been in existence because we are a host county. And we have had the head of the AB Tech on this board, and this board has given them money every year. Why did they get into that shape, Mike? And why did you have to go over there and cause all that stink to find out what's going on? Thank God you did. If the government does all, eliminates competition, where's the government going to get any money, folks? No profits, no taxes. Please, I beg you, establish a budget and make them stick to it. It's going to be hard, as you saw tonight, because they're going to have the voting pressure on them. And you have to tell them yay or nay, and why they should be yay or nay, or sell it. And they can fire you. But it takes guts, folks, to stick to your budget. I'm looking for you all sticking to that budget. And now a praise. I got 6 seconds. If the buzzer goes off, you can give me an extra 5 seconds because I'm praising you. Thank God that young man over there referred me to another member of the staff here, and I got to go look at all of the checks on the internet.
Your time is up.
Yeah, I know it's up, and I'm going to take that time where you can arrest me and throw me out, Brownie. I don't really care. You know I don't.
Thanks. All right. Who's next? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Commissioners, and an enthusiastic welcome to you, our new county manager. My name is Anita Metcalf. I know many of you on this board. I live at 221 Liberty Road in Candler, and I live on a family farm that the property has been in my family for over 100 years. I came this evening to speak to you from a rather unique perspective. I'm a native of Candler, that's unique, and I worked with Buncombe County government for 26 and a half years. I am wearing tonight my 25-year service watch, and I'm proud, very proud, to have been a member of the county employees. I worked with employment and training programs, and Commissioner Whiteside, you would remember the Neighborhood Youth Corps back many years ago. That eventually became employment and training programs, and then I became Director of Training and Development for Buncombe County. I was responsible for developing programs, training programs for county employees, such as new employee orientation, supervisory training, continuous process improvement, and I will have to tell you that Mr. Holland was one of the most outstanding and enthusiastic participants in those programs. We developed an employee evaluation plan, and we trained people in the county, supervisors, on how to conduct evaluations. And I also worked with AB Tech in providing computer training for county employees and a number of other consulting firms to help the county achieve the skill level that they need in order to best serve the citizens of this county. After 26.5 years, I began working at AB Tech as Vice President of College Relations and then eventually Vice President of College Advancement and Executive Director of the Foundation. When I began, we had 6 scholarships, and today I think we have over 450. I currently serve on the AB Tech Foundation Board, and our donors watch with interest the negotiations that go on almost daily, and they wonder what is going on. It's because of the most generous people that we have been able to develop those scholarships to over 450. And I thank them for their generosity and for their generosity to college students. I come to you today.
Your time is up unless there are other people who give up their time so that you have additional time. It takes 8 people to do that. If there are 8 people who would raise their hands, then you can get additional time, or it is limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening, and thank you for your service, elected officials. My name is Richard Hurley. I was an AB Tech trustee for like 20 years, served as chair a couple of different stints, and I'm currently on the foundation board. And I'd like to just take a moment to fill in some blanks from history, if I could, because like many AB Tech trustees, I actively supported the 2011 quarter-cent tax increase, or referendum. And some months after that, after its approval, State Representative Nathan Ramsey successfully submitted a local bill transferring the building authority from AB Tech to the county. I called my old friend Nathan up and said, just out of curiosity, what was the impetus behind this? He said, well, Wanda Green had told me that she was in favor of it, and that then President Hank Dunn was in favor of it, and that I, being the trustees, we were all in favor of it. Well, I told him, as did Hank Dunn in the conversation, that neither of us nor the board were in favor of this local bill. Now, when the improper use of county funds by the recent county administration came to light, I started connecting the dots on why this control of AB Tech construction projects was so important, and I think I now know why. But in the summer of 18, Commissioner and Trustee Mike Fryer asked the state legislature to submit a local bill in Raleigh to extend the county's authority for AB Tech construction for 5 more years. AB Tech President Dennis King and the Board of Trustees learned after the fact about this, and I was just curious if the commissioners supported his action prior to this, or was this strictly something that the Commissioner Fryer decided to do. And I'm not being accusatory, I just asked that question. I attended the February 7th AB Tech Board of Trustees meeting after having learned that the county commissioners were going to present a proposal that afternoon to make the college whole on the funds which were misappropriated from the tax money earmarked for AB Tech construction projects. I was truly taken aback when I came to that meeting and found that the proposal actually came from Commissioner Fryer and interim county manager George Wood, and not the commissioners. So I was a bit troubled that the intent was to get the board to approve it, then return to get approval from the commissioners. It seemed like a cart and horse situation. So I was puzzled why the proposal didn't come directly from the commissioners, and that would be a question. It just appeared like a rush job, and I couldn't really understand it, because it seemed illogical to me that we wouldn't have waited a couple of more weeks for the new county manager to come on board, since she would be owning the repercussions of the commission's actions. And regarding the I guess that got me.
Your time is up.
I want to thank you for listening to this, because it is an important issue, and thank you.
Thanks.
Pass the word. Good one for both boards.
Yes, sir. It takes eight members to yield for a person to get more than 3 minutes. But you can speak, but you can't just yield your individual time under our rules. Sorry.
I'm Robert Metcalf, and I'm the husband of the beautiful lady who was just up. And I share that farm and Campbell with her. It's a nice place to live. Welcome to the North County manager. I'm going to finish this as she has it. I come to you this evening not as an adversary, but in a conciliatory manner, listening to discuss this evening, and the contracts and more are very complicated. And I ask this board to consider tabling the memorandum of understanding that you talked about earlier, because it would be in the best interest of the county and also in the best interest of AV Tech. Representatives from each group could get together and sit around the table and with the new county manager, who has nothing to do with it to start with, but needs to have something to do with it, and listen to the interests of each other and develop a plan that will best serve the interests of the citizens and of this county. To this point, it appears that more has been developed by the county without initial input from AV Tech. A former president of AV Tech often said, "A rising tide lifts all ships." Together we can create this rising tide. The citizens of this community deserve no less. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening about this very important issue that's facing our community. It would be a good way for the county to get back some trust, and it would be a good way, Commissioner Edwards, to make AV Tech whole.
Thank you, Mr. and Ms. Metcalf. Mr. Rice, and does anybody else want to speak? All right, we'll do Mr. Rice, and then we'll come to you next. Okay.
Well, I'm glad to see my neighbors here. They're wonderful. He's my ninth grade teacher. You know how old he is now, don't you? His beard ain't as long as yours. But anyway, they're fine folks. Transparency, trust. My goodness, we just hear all these big words anymore. All because of one person, or two or three in the county. Mrs. Green and her predecessors. My concern is one big one, and that is with our new county manager. She don't know me, and she probably don't want to know me. But I think she's going to do a good job, because the other one done a good job. But you know what? She didn't have the oversight. Do you hear that, Ms. New County Manager? The oversight of this board was the problem. It wasn't the county manager. You let her go. You know, you let a kid go and they're going to get in trouble, ain't they? Not even get convicted and brought up here. So the oversight is the problem. So I'd like to propose, and I ain't been around here in a while, so I'd like to propose something with the new county manager's position, and that is that every record or every note, every piece of paper that goes through that office is collected and stored for a period of time. And it is thought through with auditors or anybody else that needs to look at those records so they don't land up in the landfill where Mrs. Green's record did by the truckloads. Now you're looking at a man that knows. He's not just talking out of his hat. This has happened for many years. I've been here a lot longer than any Yuns. And I say Yuns, I'm from the south there, Mr. Manager. But I'll educate you, but I can't educate fools. So I would ask that y'all put something in place that's going to protect these records, and it'll also protect the county manager herself. And I don't think she'd be against that if she's an honest person, and I believe she is, according to the record. If you don't care about the record being took care of and stored, then you must not be too honest. So let's see what the oversight board here will do. You're under oversight. You know that? We sit back here and you look over us. That's about the only oversight I saw on these other boards when we had it before. So let's take a hold of the ham and do something right and correct the record. Thank you very much. Good luck, County Manager.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rice. Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna go ahead and hold on.
Okay, sure. Anybody else? All right, last chance. Okay. All right, we have just a couple of announcements before we adjourn. On March 19th at 5 p.m., the County Commissioners will hold a regular meeting here at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. April 2nd at 5 p.m., the County Commissioners will hold a regular meeting at 200 College Street, room 326. And also on April 16th at 5 p.m., the County Commissioners will hold a regular meeting at 200 College Street, room 326. April 19th, county offices will be closed for Good Friday. And that concludes our business for the evening. We're adjourned. Thank you all for being here.
Going to have a closed session? They never said nothing about closed session, did they?
That's probably why they